Peace, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Yeah, apologies for being late. We're trying to figure out what's going on with this. I don't know, the Doritos monster is back. And it only shows up when I speak. So let me see if that's me. Let me see if I can do something about that.
Okay.
I'll mute up, but you can go ahead, though. Everybody's coming in and greeting on the spot. Yeah.
Okay, because I can't look at the chat, so unless I go on YouTube. So I don't hear it now. Sounds kind of clear now. Yeah, I don't hear it. I don't hear it right now. So
I don't know. That fixed it.
oh,
I didn't fix it. I think I made it louder.
Right. Wow.
Audio is okay, loud and clear. So
Yeah,
y'all
I
don't
can
hear
hear
people. Okay, y'all don't hear someone crunching ice in the background while I'm
Right.
talking. It sounds like a chiropractor's office.
Okay.
A little crunchy. Okay, how's that? The crunch is gone? No, it's back.
Well,
It's
we'll
not
just
as
flow.
bad though.
No,
I
it's
don't
not.
think so.
No.
Let me try my headphones. That's last resort. I don't know what else to try after this. I think it might be me. Okay, how about this?
I can. We can still hear it a little bit. Not.
Yeah.
Go ahead and speak. Now, yeah, I don't hear it. We don't hear it now. So
Okay, Menyelek Eden was right there. We gotta mute and speak one at a time.
okay.
Okay, so yeah, that works. Peace, everyone. Hopefully, all apologies for the technical difficulties, but back again. Shabbat Shalom. I see everyone piling in. So, South Tahava, peace, peace in Manaya, peace in Yakira Eden, peace out with Yadaram, always punctual. Peace, Alexandria Grice. Peace, brother Jason Dip. Yeah, back at it again. How is everyone strong? We always ask that. And I had a question for Abba Herut while we were backstage waiting. Take this out now. I wanted to ask everyone else too. We always say, I'm willing you a good day, or how was your day, or is your day going all right? But I wanted to ask, what does a good day look like to you? What would you consider to be a good day? Like if I sit down and command my day, like if I wake up on time with my alarm clock and I didn't go to bed like an hour or two earlier, I get to get up and stretch, go for a run, come home, command my day, come home, take a shower, command my day, do my daily activities, whatever I got to get done, and come home, and I may be tired or exhausted, but I accomplished like at least 80% of what I set out to do. I'm kind of happy. I feel like that's a good day. But I'm curious for everyone. It's just a thought that I had. What does a good day look like? Because Raska says didn't even have to use my AK. All right, fair enough. Yeah, because I was thinking like Like if I was a crooked real estate agent and I was out and I wanted to sell some land, and I saw that I could finesse some land out of a native tribe. Let's say I get some Lakota land, or I get some Apache land, and I got like 10 acres, and I sell that 10 acres for like $10 million.
It's gotten worse, Master Menyelek. Like it's gotten a little worse. I don't know why.
You can hear it still?
I'm on my end.
Oh wow, that is terrible. Can everyone in the chat hear it as well? Just enduring it. I'm gonna wait. Oh, everybody's busy thinking about their ideal day now. I kind of shot myself in the foot. Oh, it's clear for you guys. It's just choppy for you, our Herut. So I guess I'm gonna hear it on my end when I'm on mute and you're speaking. But yeah, man, I'm a crooked real estate agent. I got some land. I finessed it off of off some Lakotas. I went on a reservation. I took some land, and I was able to get it legally transferred over to someone who wanted some of the land, but they couldn't get it. I got a nice payoff. I got a couple of mil, and I didn't necessarily have to worry about working on. That's a good day. A couple $1 million, and all I had to do is bend the law. I do this every day. And I get less than that. So a couple $1 million, that's a good day for me. Not a good day for the people whose land just got taken, and they can't really do anything legally because legally it belongs to the guy who just bought it. It's not a good day for them. But if that helps out with the visualization of what you would consider a good day, because I think it's unique to everyone. A good day for me ain't necessarily a good day for you. No one likes waking up early. Some people hate running, and I've heard that working alongside me can be tiresome because I'm always doing the most. I'll let you respond, Abba. I'll go on mute.
Yeah, for me, as we were pondering that thought, like I said, my day, I was just sharing with him that I think of the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, and it's so funny how he would replay that day over and over again the next day. So for me, I go with the flow. I have a routine. As soon as I start my meditations. After I finish my meditations and I do my workout, and then I just get ready for the day. And so, regardless, I start the day whereas I am prepared for it. So in other words, it doesn't matter whatever I'm dealing with or facing with, I'm just gonna deal with it. And so, when it gets towards the end of the day, they're all like, "Woo, I got through it," or "Wow, that was something." But regardless of all that, days are the moments. It just moves, and so I'm grateful for those movements, for those moments, as to especially the rough ones. I'm going to tell you, especially rough ones, because what I do is when I go through a certain rough moment, I always make sure that I'm like, okay, what did I learn from that, and what can I do?
I'm sorry, Albo.
No, but that's pretty much.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say, I see in the chat, Yakira Eden is saying that you're the one with the crunch monster, not me. So I don't know. I don't know how we can fix it from there. And
you know what? Let me come off another. I'm gonna try something else. Like right now, I don't hear it, so you must hear it. So it's probably Wi-Fi. So this one I'm gonna come out, come back in. How about that?
And okay.
That works better.
All right. Let's see how it goes. All right. Yeah. I don't hear it no more. So that kind of confirms it. Give thanks, Detective Yakira Eden, for getting to the bottom of the issue. Did anyone else come into the space? No. Okay, cool. So I see a couple people who have responded. Ima Yakira Eden says a good day looks like progress, accomplishing a measured step closer to Yah's purpose and assigned goals. Sometimes that could even mean simply sitting still. Yeah, any day where I can afford to sit still to me is a good day, because I don't like doing nothing. I'm always doing the most because I want to knock everything out of the way so I can rest and not think about what I got to do. Safta Ahava says, it's a good day when I wake up and then I can choose to command my day as to what it's going to look like. All right, well, what's a good day for you? You know, commanding your day might mean I have to go to 3 funerals today, you know, and they were all close friends. So you can command your day, but it doesn't necessarily have to be pleasant. Would you still consider that a good day? And I'm only giving you specifics. You weren't specifics. You weren't specific.
Now, can you hear me well now? Is it a little better? Sounds better.
I don't hear any crunching.
You know why? I'm learning. It's because of the darn Wi-Fi. I said, you know what? I'm gonna go. That's why I had a backup plan, just in case. So it's okay. It's the darn Wi-Fi. So I'm just gonna stream off of my device. But go ahead. I got you.
So was it the Wi-Fi?
It was the Wi-Fi. Yeah. So I just streamed off my phone, and it's fine. I had a backup plan just in case. So that now I know what the issue is.
All right, cool. Learning.
I'm learning. See? Talking about my day. Okay, work it out. It's like, okay, we're gonna figure it out. But go ahead.
Yeah, they already got better. But Ross Kush said progress on the process towards refining one's character. Everybody giving these vague answers. What's going on? Soft Ahava. Ima Yakira Eden, I might not be able to let you slide either, only because you said sitting still. I kind of let it slide. Nobody said grab a smoothie, go out to a gun range, go hunting. Nothing. It's just, I'm evolving. Imanaya says being mobile, interacting with others, and having a positive impact, whether it is a changed mood or a smile, getting things on my to-do list accomplished, even if it's one thing, focusing on positives. All right, that's a little bit more specific. We can let Imanaya ride. Peace, Urban Eats. Peace, Akil Karat. Look at that. Abba with the tech fixes. Yeah, you see.
See? I know a little something. Not a lot, but a little something.
Brother Jason says, a good day is more proactively creating how I want it to be and less reactive to my emotions. All right. I don't know if I can take that. Okay. You heard the specific thing, so you put something else in. A good day is when it's warm outside. Yeah, no snow. Yeah, I feel you on that one. And it's colder where you are than when I went to Canada. It's colder in your area than where I was. I was dipping my toes in all the cold. But yeah, man, snow. You know what I did enjoy? A good day for me over there was snowboarding. No, I never touched snow. But before I left, before I went there, I never touched snow. But before I left, I had some experience with ice skating and snowboarding. So.
But you said you wanted to see snow too.
Yeah,
I remember you said that. I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. You're gonna get your opportunity to see snow, and you sure did.
Yeah, I always get extreme initiation. So my first sight of snow was an actual snowstorm. It always happens that way. All of my firsts are like, yeah, it's not gonna be standard because then you're gonna expect the standard. Peace on the radio, Safta Havo. Okay, with part two, a good day is starting out with movement, sticking to my schedule with my annual studies, taking a walk in the park. Yeah, those are some good things. Those are some cool things on the radio saying it was fun, surprisingly. Yeah, because she bougie. She was into skiing. Yeah. Yeah, man, but we're talking about pressing on, right? And one of the reasons why I thought about that question was sometimes you don't have a good day. Sometimes your day is rough and you don't want to talk to nobody anymore and you can't wait to just lie down and just have a do over tomorrow. You know, nobody talk to me. I don't want no food. I'm not thirsty. Just let me go lie down. You know, you might drag yourself into the shower before you go to bed because that's just how tired you are from just how rough your day was. And it's not always something that you can recover from. Like you can't always wait until the end of the day to recover. You know, you might have a job interview, let's say or you might have an interview to do a contract, and you've been bidding for this contract for a while, and you say, okay, finally, I'm gonna get this contract. You know, I'm gonna make sure I'm looking good, got my nice light blue shirt on, got my blazer on, you know, but I got it on. I don't want to mess up my shirt because I just got it pressed, so I'm not gonna put on my blazer until I walk into the office. You got this whole game plan, right? And you're gonna arrive like 10 minutes early because your bus was moving pretty well. You know, they were on schedule. It's like, all right, everything's lining up. All I have to do is get there on time. They already told me it was good. I just need to make a good impression. You know, 10 minutes before you get there, and someone just bumps into you and spills their coffee all over you. You know, not only is it hot and burning, but now all the time you just spent and on making a good impression, that's out the window. You know, you managed to finally get in there, but you can't even cover it up with the blazer because the coffee's everywhere. You know, you're wincing in pain because you still got third-degree burns, and you don't get the contract. You know, that's not a good start. But are you gonna let that just cancel the rest of the day? Because sometimes it does feel that way. Sometimes it does feel like, oh man, this day is short. You know, and you don't get a mulligan. You gotta press on, right? And you gotta move through that sense of resistance that you have to continuing your day, because pressing means you're pushing against something that's actually resisting you, but you have some level of yang energy going on, and you might be so overcome with that yin energy, that desire to just contract and then curl up into the fetal position, but you still got to extend and you still got to keep pressing forward. You know, so sometimes that happens, and you have to be able to pull from your source in order to get the strength to move on, because just pulling from your ego, or pulling from your energy, or pulling from an external source is not going to do it. You know, and this was prompted, Abba Herut, we were speaking earlier about how it was prompted by a couple of comments that Chief had made during one of our previous segments about being faithful, right?
Mm-hmm.
True fidelity. And he was speaking about not necessarily drawing your strength from wanting to be pat on the back, or wanting the world to console you because you've taken on a journey and you're kind of either discouraged or you're tired, you know, from your journey. And he used the example of walking through the desert. And he was saying that just because I get discouraged on this journey, I can't necessarily look for consolation now, which is usually something that we want to happen through the body. You know, I can't start to eat sand and drink salt water and expect to be encouraged or expect for that to sustain me. I have to pull from my daily practices. I have to pull from my unconditional love affair with why I even started the journey. You know, so those are some of the premises that we were speaking about when we were putting together this bill. But yeah, you have anything that you wanted to add at this point, Abu?
Yeah. When you're pressing on, you're you're understanding that you can't, you don't, for me, it's not about standing by and just, you know, just allowing that moment. Like you said, say you had a bad day,
Mm-hmm.
it's very challenging. So now, if you're not careful, you'll get stagnant,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll forget like your purpose. And
Right.
so, um, when we were sharing, I was, I was, when you and I were talking in backstage yesterday
Mm-hmm.
about, I was saying about my time when I was going to my first moment when I was being initiated, and I
Mm-hmm.
remember I had to wear my whites. It's about a year and a half, and even though the situation that I was dealing with, a evil godmother at the time. I didn't know that she was that way, but the point was, my Baba were always reminding me is like, and it's funny. I didn't know I was going through a test. That test was, don't focus on her, or don't focus on the outer things. Focus on your journey. Focus on that purpose. And so pressing on was, I know I had to be in before 8 or be at night. It's so funny how we do in this, and I knew, we're restricted. And some people might look at it like you're restricted and it's like there's no freedom or so. No, it wasn't about that. Yes, it was hard. Yes, it was hard, but this is like 2017. But my point was, I didn't, when my brother broke it down, he said, listen, it's about building your character, also building, are you going to be committed to this? And
Mm-hmm.
so when I had to let go, Okay, I had to be in. I had to wear all whites. And and I'm gonna tell you, you getting everything was all white, underwear, socks, everything. And so now you're worried about what other people are gonna say. Was joking at work, and I work in a dirty. And when you wear whites, I get annoyed wearing whites, because not anymore, because I hate getting dirty. So now
Mm-hmm.
you have whites on, you don't like getting dirty. So the point is, it taught me. I did this for a year and a half, and had to be in. Couldn't go to parties. Couldn't go out anyway. Couldn't do the. I missed it. But the point was, that prepared me for where I'm now. Why? Because I didn't focus on the negativity. I didn't focus on the challenge. I knew I had to get it accomplished. I knew it was gonna be a year. It was actually supposed to be a year, and then it extended for another half. I'm like, oh, come on! But I endured it.
Mm-hmm.
But I look back, that prepared me, and it helped me to endure something. That was one of my greatest challenges. But after I got through it, and it's rewarding, and it's so funny because when Chicago went through the lockdown and everything, people couldn't go out or so. I'm like, okay, hell, I already went through it already. I'm like, you
Right.
can't be around nobody 6 feet and everything. Please, I could do it anyway. For who? So what? So when you pressing on, it's like, I knew I had a duty to do. I was committed to it because it was showing me about being committed. It was showing me about, it was a duty. It was also, it was the first test that my father watched me go through something. He's like, I know you can do it. Even though I'm like, no, I don't, Baba, I can't do it. No, you can do it. And sure enough, I did. But the point is, pressing on is that goal. It's just moving and not focusing on the problems, not focusing on the challenges, but just do it. Just do it. And by doing it and pressing on, I saw one of my sisters at one of my elders' funeral, and it's like I can remember. Um, she helped me through it a lot, but she cheated. She did, but I ain't gonna say that. I ain't gonna go any further. But not a lot, not a lot. So she was like, "This is some bull." But my point is, but it helped me to understand about life. Just like I said, my day. I'm ready for my day, regardless if it's good or bad. It's like, okay, whatever happens, what happens. The, the key is, can I endure it? That's it. That's it.
Right. 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 That endurance is a key piece. And even if someone says like I could use the example that I used earlier with the interview, right? If you say
Mm-hmm.
you have a pressing issue, you have a
Mm-hmm.
pressing issue, this is something that needs to be dealt with, or something that you need to respond to like immediately, you know. So even with the pressing on, there's like an immediacy, almost like if you see a child hurt themselves, or like if you see them fall, the longer
Mm-hmm.
you leave them on the ground, the more likely it is for them to cry. if
Mm-hmm.
you if you like facilitate like a speedy recovery, and you dust them off, you're like, oh, you fell, you all right? Yeah, you good, you all right? And it's like, yeah. It's like, all right, cool. And they'll be like, I am all right. They have
Right.
this speedy recovery because you took immediate action to make sure that they knew they weren't hurt more than they were.
Right.
They didn't have any room to make like a disproportionate judgment, like that kind of hurt. Should I be crying? You ever have one of those slow criers? Like they start up real slow, and it's like a scooter. It's like it's like they take it off. But there's like that. I'm not sure if I should be crying, but no one's stopping me, so I think I'll just commit to it. It was like, nah. It's like, you all right? All right, let's go. Go get him, Tiger.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And that's much different than if they fall and everybody looks at them like, are you okay? It's like, oh, I got an audience. I can kill this performance. And they just start bawling. you know? But the pressing on is similar. You can take a hit as an adult, and you can get up and dust yourself off quickly. Make sure you assess yourself, assess the damage, and be like, all right, that kind of hurt. All right, I think I might have gotten burned. Let me make sure. Okay, no, I'm all right. It just hurt. I should probably just go across the street to the washroom. I might have to spend some money on a shirt, just to make sure I'm cleaned up.
Right.
I might be late, but if I explain to them what happened and I call them while I'm fixing the problem, they could at least see, it's something that I couldn't predict. And I'm still handling the situation. I didn't cry. I didn't rage quit, as they would say. I didn't get angry and just quit the day. Or I didn't, just walk into the office huffing and puffing, looking for consolation from them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, yeah, it happens. It's like, oh, this is what happened to me. Something I couldn't control. I knew I was a little early, so I came earlier. I'm just going to buy a shirt, and I'm going to be there in a second. Okay? And then be like, oh, okay, we can reschedule 30 minutes for it. But you have in your head, sometimes we get so stuck in our minds of what we see the situation playing out to be.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think it's supposed to go this way, and you have this image, and any deviation from what you think it should be, and you're annoyed. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not entitled for things to go exactly the way you want them to go. You're not that smart to plan your entire day out, because you can't coordinate all of the humans you're going to be interacting with that day. It's something higher than you that's coordinating that. And the most you can do is take responsibility for how you move. And that was one of the other chief points that Chief had touched on. And he was saying that even sometimes it's a small bit of progress, but if once you make that choice to change, even if you use all of your energy and you exert your energy, and you only make a small bit of progress, it's still progress, and you've changed your trajectory, so you're able to press on, even if you realize, wow, I've been living 20, 30, 40 years, 40 plus years. I've been jacked up in the way I've been
Right.
living. The way I was raised had something to do with it. The way that I behave has something to do with it. The things that I realized were messed up, but I didn't change anyway, has something to do with it. But as it stands right now, I'm a mess. Can you accept that and still press forward and say, okay, I'm not going to be a mess anymore? So now everything you do is still going to be kind of messy, because you didn't really move much from that messy spot. But at least your trajectory has changed, and you're moving into a much cleaner, you know, a much cleaner way of expressing the life that you've been given. It's like my life has to be more than this. I'm a mess, you know. I don't do basic stuff the way I should. You know, I don't wake up early every day because sometimes my days run over. And like for me, like I'm doing college classes, so and if you're not careful, you are going to fall behind, and work is going to pile up on you. You're gonna have a lot of sleepless nights trying to catch up.
Right.
Yeah, if anyone hasn't gone to school yet and you're going to school, do your work as it's assigned and try to be ahead of the teacher on the readings. I'll say that because they give you a syllabus, but we typically just wait for instructions.
Right. And it's funny you just shared about the classes and everything. I can't afford to, ever since December. Right. They going back to pressing on. It's like, no, I don't have the luxury of having a class move because something's always changing and I got to keep up. And it's a lot. It's definitely a lot, but it also I'm able to, it disciplined because now it's like, I know what I got to do. I know what I got to get accomplished in a day. I have it set up that way, and I know I can't. It's so funny because I was talking with somebody, and they saw just a little bit of my schedule, and they were annoyed. They were annoyed because I'm particular in a certain thing, and I said, no, this is how I do things. You're annoyed. I said, because you're not me. The reason is if I don't do, like, I have to leave, like I even have a schedule and I have to leave at a certain thing. And it's like, no, and some people want to, sometimes I got time where I can, but it's like, no, I got 5 minutes. That's it. That's all I can give you because I know if I'm fall behind, and that's the funny thing about it since December of last year to where we're at now. I can't afford, since I got that mindset now, I can't afford to fall behind because, and that's another thing about pressing on. It'll mess your whole day up. Your whole day is behind. And I have had that happen where now my day is extended because things change. Okay. And so as we move and it does happen, but it's like, okay, then that's when I'm like, okay, Sabbath's here. I can breathe a little bit.
I have the same reaction. I can't wait to exhale.
Exactly. But see, soon as sundown goes, I got homework. It's like, okay, I can really appreciate Sabbath, but I know if I don't use that time to like, okay, I'm not supposed to do anything. I'm supposed to be relaxing. I'm supposed to be resting. And I had to program myself to like, okay, I would like look at my notes. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to be doing this because it's Sabbath. I'm supposed to be. And so now I'm in that mode. But soon as sundown goes back, I was like, it's easy for me to go right back into I'm like, okay, because I don't want to be behind.
You know what's funny about that? I was thinking about this when Chief said it, but you brought it to mind again. Chief had brought up during the segment when we were dealing with the challenge, right? And he was saying that he's explaining how Shabbat is from evening till evening. And that's actually how our days are counted. It's from evening to evening. But we're operating on someone else's clock. So because of that, it feels like we have one less day than everyone else because everyone's day starts in the dawning. It doesn't start in the evening.
Right.
Right. So it always feels like, because everybody's like, we don't have enough time to get this done. He's my classmate, but I was like, y'all have all day Saturday. You know what I mean? And these other days. So that's what came to mind. It was kind of funny.
Right.
Let me check the chat.
Yeah, I didn't see anything coming through in the chat while we were talking.
Yeah, Abba Raskos had responded. He said, being reminded of or taking advantage of at least one, the abundance of opportunity for advancement in multiple ways, like writing a new poem or buying an oil change so the car continues to run. Okay, so anything that helps you to do maintenance on your life.
Right.
You know, it's sort of like a mechanical example.
And that's as you read in the chat, that's a good idea. I mean, not a good, but that's a good point. Most of us don't look at our life as a like you just said, an oil change. We'll go get an oil change for a car. We'll go wash the car. We'll go do all that. But then when it's our own personal life, do I do maintenance? How am I doing that maintenance on my life? So like example, we got next week. I'm already preparing for Ramadan and then our solstice. Those 3 days with no eating, and so I'm looking forward to it because I already have my I got to drink fluids. So and it's funny because Ross Chris was mentioning we were talking about the driving, and I get tired after my day, especially it's like in the morning, it's like 4 hours, up to about 4 hours, and it's challenging for me. So I want to have to snack on something. But now with Ramadan coming, I just got to drink something. That'll help me stay up. But it's challenging. So I'm looking forward to Ramadan. But again, that's like a maintenance. That maintenance is like your reflection. You know, now that's extra on top of what you're doing. But then I look forward to Ramadan. I look forward to the solstices and the equinoxes when we fast. Because what it does, it's a reflection of your moment. And then, during the day, you got the full day. So it's like, okay, what are you doing? Now, most people eat during their entire day. Mm-hmm. Okay. They were asking me, they just celebrated St. Pat's. And I'm like, I don't celebrate that stuff. I'm not, I ain't wearing no green. Don't, mm-hmm. Don't even ask, and yeah, I don't care. That's not my culture. I don't care about that. No, I'm not giving you $5 for all that. I don't eat that stuff,
I'm laughing because I always wear green because it's like my favorite color. I might not wear green out of spite.
Well, you know what?
Now,
this is kind of greenish. It works for me because it's heavier. I deliberately try to make sure I don't wear anything green. Of course, it didn't work out with this but I made sure I don't want no one that's, I had to listen on the way and like, hey, it's happy, same. I'm like, okay, yeah. But my point is like you said, pressing on. I'm like, damn it, I'm pressing on. I don't want to think about those moments. I'm thinking about what I'm preparing for the moment.
But that's the thing, that not wearing green wasn't the most important thing in your day. So whether you wore it or not, it didn't really matter. It's similar to Thanksgiving, because Chief did the segment on giving thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was like I thought it was a segment on gratitude because I didn't realize that it was Thanksgiving. Because I wasn't thinking about it. So even if you don't realize what it is, you're not celebrating it just because you wore a green shirt. Because nobody who technically celebrates it knows what they're celebrating. They just know it's an excuse to wear green and get drunk. The majority of them. But yeah, man, that oil change or stopping to like do maintenance on yourself, that is a good level of maintenance, I think. Mm-hmm. Something that's Yakira Eden had mentioned up above earlier in the chat. That's a form of maintenance too, like sitting mm-hmm. in silence. Mm-hmm. Getting some actual rest is another form of maintenance.
Yes.
Right. I remember you were telling me earlier when we were backstage, because you had to travel, you were planning on doing some studying on the plane, but
and fell asleep.
You fell asleep.
I'm like, dang. I'm like, again, I had to prepare, and I'm like, dang it, I got things to do. But the body says, you know what? You got things to do, and I got things to do. It's called I'm going to sleep while you got things to do. So
as soon as you strapped in, there's a meme, and the guy's like, we got him. Yeah, wow. We finally got him to sit still. Now it's time to take him out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that happens sometimes. Sometimes your body does an overhaul. It's like, yo, you are not, you're not being a team player right now. I mean, we gotta relax. We gotta maintain ourselves, and you don't have just that one body. You know, you have your physical body, but you also have your emotional body, which you
Right.
may overload and not allow to rest. You
Right.
have your spiritual body, which you might do the same thing. You have your mind, which you may constantly keep running on overdrive, trying to solve problems that either it doesn't really make sense to try to solve them, you know, or it may not even be a problem that you should be concerned about. But if you don't stop to take the time to qualify what it is that you're trying to solve, or qualify what's got you running yourself on E every time, or qualify some of the things that you're even aiming for, and so adamant about it looking a certain way in terms of the end result. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, the end result has to be this, and if it's not this, then it wasn't a success, or if it's not this, then I'm disappointed. But
Mm-hmm.
you can't be disappointed if you're not expecting something. You know, you're disappointed because you expected a certain result. You know, as
Right.
opposed to saying, this is how this played out. It's not an excuse to not plan. But if you plan and you do everything you possibly can, you get everything down to the letter, and at the last second, like I was telling you last night when I was dealing with the wine, you
Uh-huh.
know, right, because it's irritating, right? And it's a good
Uh-huh.
example of an immediate gut reaction to like almost having the rug pulled from under you because you expected to go a certain way.
Right.
Because just a little background, I had some wine that I was dealing with, and it was a part of the process where I take it from one vessel to another vessel to just get rid of the yeast, and then I would put it back into the original vessel. But in that process, there's like a glass tool that you use called a hydrometer, and it lets you know how much alcohol is in the wine. But it's glass and it's super fragile. So I'm cleaning up everything. I came home, and this is where the point of frustration comes in too, because you feel like you're on the right track when you're doing things, and you get success after success after success, even if it's a small success. Because I came home, I I did a little workout, took a good shower, shampoo everything, clean up my face for so I don't look scruffy on camera. Came out, cleaned up the kitchen, got all my tools laid out, sanitized everything. It's like, all right, today's going good, right? It's a good day because I'm getting everything done. But as I'm cleaning up everything, the hydrometer slipped out of my hand and shattered. Glass was everywhere. And I was, I let out a few choice words but I only let out like one. I was intensely angry for like 10 seconds. And I just took a deep breath and I was like, I'm still gonna finish doing what I'm doing. you know? But I had to take that deep breath and recalibrate, recenter. Because it's like that's a major part of why I wanted to do this. I want to see where it's at. But I'll have to check. I don't have to check it now. I can check it later. I just have to order a new one. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the biggest of setbacks, but it was an annoyance because I expected to do this thing.
Oh, Master, looks like you froze up a little bit, Master Menyelek. But it's okay. So as he was sharing the story, I'll just take over what he was sharing. Is that when you have something, you have a project, and even if you have a project, and and I go through that too. I'll be on something, and then I get upset, and you dealing with it, but you just deal with it. It's like, especially like driving for me. It irritates me. It irritates me when people that don't know how to drive and they're not paying attention, and so they're hazardous, and so I'll get angry. I'll say some quick words or quiet, but the point is I move on. I don't hold that thought. And so what happens is as we press on, the task is going to be taken care of, like he was just sharing, is that it's gonna be completed anyway. But at the same time, I think it's sometimes people, and I've heard this. I'm kind of a perfectionist. Being a perfectionist is I gotta do it a certain way, and I'll keep improving it until it gets better because I don't get satisfied right away. I always it's got to get better and better, and I got to continue to make it better. And so that pressing on is like you said, if it's the maintenance of your body, maintenance of your spiritual life, I'm still working at making it better. So I'm never really satisfied in the moment. It's a continual of whereas you're continually moving. You're continually moving without dropping a hat. Okay. And you're always looking at getting it better and better. And so that's the beauty of when you're pressing on, you're moving on. I don't stay in that moment. Sometimes I do if it's something that irritates me or something like that. But meanwhile, I just continue to realize that I got to continue this moment and get it better. So anyhow, we're going to be in the chat. Yafe, Akoti Yafe says, "Oh, same Abba. Driving will bring it out of you sometimes." Yes, that happens a lot. Every day I go through that with the driving because I'm now a professional driver, and as a professional driver, I'm looking out for not only while I'm driving, but I got to look out for others because it's almost like you got to drive for other people, and especially the parents, because I drive with the schools. And it's funny how the parents they'll park, and I'm like, you're not supposed to be parking there. But the thing is, that's a challenge, dealing with people who don't know how to drive and people not thinking. In the morning, you see a lot of that. And so what helps me is, again, staying focused, and again, that's why the rest comes in. Even it's funny, even though I was sharing about the rest, like I'm a night person. I love being up at night. But since I've been doing this, I can't stay up at night anymore. I got to get to bed earlier. And so that's the only bummer, like moving with the day. I have to, because it's a responsibility now. And again, I have a purpose, and I greet my students. But the thing is, it's okay. Even though I don't stay up, even on the weekends, I don't really get to stay up on the weekends. But the point is, because I have a purpose and I know what I need to do, going to bed earlier, and I have to work on it because I struggle. That's a struggle every day for me to get to bed at a certain time, and then getting up at 3 a.m. So Yafe is mentioned in the chat. I have to remember to continue despite the movements of others. Yeah. And also realize that it may be me in those moments to readjust. Yes. Because that's another thing. We have to learn to readjust. Like right now, we're readjusting. Master Menyelek is having technical issues, but it's okay. We're gonna continue. We're gonna continue with the movement. And so life is about readjusting our way. When you're pressing on, again, you don't want to get stuck. It's easy to get caught up in a moment and you get stuck. You get, I think of it like, you hear the story about deer. You're driving and the deer gets blinded by you, and it just freezes, and then before you ran over. And so you can go through a moment where it's like that you're that deer and the headlights are just shining on you, like, oh, you just get stuck, and it just blinded you. And then what does it do? You stuck. Okay. Yafe was mentioned in the chat. Humility brings the understanding. It's not always everybody else. Yeah. It also reminds me, as you mentioned, that I'm trying to understand the part of but I see the humility part. What humbles me is you got those little ones, and they're precious. And one, I don't like accidents, and I've came close. But the point is, it's like you got to be in that moment. You gotta, as you press on, you got to be in that moment where you don't forget. because you don't. It takes a split second. Things can happen in a split second. So when you are focused, and you got to, and again, it's a mental thing. You got to stay focused. And so doing this is, as I prepare my day, that's part of staying focused. That is part of like what we do in Anu. We don't have a luxury. Chief wrote in the one dawning, and I have to go back to it. But he wrote in the dawning, and it it was meaningful. That when we mentioned in the dawn, I'm trying to go back into the chat, and oh yeah, here it is. I know I'm gonna find it. When he was mentioning about for those still seeking, I will that you reach the target of liberty and seals realization. As long as you are a seeker, you may be ruled by your mind, body, and spirit. When you are the sage, you have learned to rule those things. You are many things, but you will only be one thing at a time. The time you spend being that thing, that is the key. And when Chief mentioned that, and of course we acknowledged him, that was a moment that I was able to catch and just resonate that. It's like being in the moment. Every moment is a sacred moment, even if it's a bad moment, even if it's a bad day. And so we have to utilize that when we're pressing on and moving on, that I don't take advantage of that. Okay. And it's easy to take advantage of that. It's easy to take advantage of the moment and forget why we're in that moment. Okay. Because sometimes when you're in that moment, it can make things more complicated if you miss the point. Okay. And so what driving does for me, it gives me the ability, because you got the speed light cameras, you got the pedestrian, because that's another thing. I'm watching the children because I'm always with the children, so I'm always making sure that they don't cut in front, because you can easily, if you're not careful, you can easily run them over, and that has happened. Not me. I'm not going to do that. So this is why you always have to be in the moment. You always got to be in a moment where you don't forget where you're at and what are you doing. And so most of the time, we as people, we'll forget that. And I think that what helps is when people recognize their life and the journey, because most people don't. I think most people, when they leave home, especially in the morning, they leave their brain at home. They left it on the nightstand, or left it in the bathroom, or people. I don't know. The point is, and I can tell when I see. I'm like, what the hell? What did they? They didn't think it out. It's just amazing when I watch people and they're I can imagine what they'll be thinking. It's like they in other words, they weren't thinking. So Yaffe mentioned in the chat, we affirm our divine authority over the lower stages of our own faculties. Chief Yuya, that's affirmation. Exactly. In Anu, we are always reminded that you are a divine being, and are you activating that divinity? And so when you're divine being, you're understanding that you're moving without emotion, moving without, and it's hard. It's hard. I know. Driving long enough, and you'll see you'll be emotional. I know. I can speak for that. But the point is, even when that happens, I'm always reminded that I'm a divine being in a vessel that has time. But that divine divinity in me is timeless. And so what am I activating? Am I really looking at the journey as I move forward? As I'm activating that divine essence, that divine mind, as Chief was sharing about affirming, as we call out our day, it's about, again, moving on purpose. And then for the most part, for us, what is your purpose? So I'm just adding in there. I know you're working out. We were having technical issues all day. Don't worry, we're gonna roll. We're gonna roll.
Hey, that's a part of. It's all a part of.
That's part of the life.
Exactly. It's part of pressing on.
Right? Exactly.
And then I turned off. I was like,
right.
okay, let's fix the problem.
What am I going to do? Sit here like a deer with them like, ah!
Right.
No, we're going to keep going. Run the deer over. It's going to be some deer meat. Okay, I got to cut it up. Now, I don't want to do it, but guess what?
You'll
got to cut it up.
Your car.
Hey, that's it.
Yeah, man. But yeah, I think I cut out in the middle of talking about, you know, my equipment breaking.
Yeah.
And long story short, I still had to make it work.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes you get caught like that. You get caught like without all of your stuff that you may have depended on in order to help you to get through a certain thing. Or maybe you're so stuck on the idea that you have to be, everything has to be perfect, or everything has to be in place for you to be able to do something, right? And it's not the way that you should move, right? Because we acknowledge that there are certain nature spirits and certain energies that we can tap into, or some of them that we can utilize in achieving our goals. But that no matter what it is, whether you're dealing with a spirit, whether it is you're dealing with a tool, whether it is you're dealing with even certain connections. Like sometimes you only meet people so that you can have an exchange of resources, and that's it. Like that's the whole season that they're meant to be in your life. You know, the resources doesn't have to be money. It could be like you could take the founder, right? You're dealing with McDonald's. The guy who they got to help them, he was saying, listen, you don't need to be in the fast food business. You need to be in the real estate business. Yeah, I remember that. So he was like, if he didn't meet him, would he have figured that out? You know what I mean? Probably not. Yeah, man. So there are certain things in your life that happen for a reason, and we may not see the blessing in some of the things that force us to take a detour, or force us to make a sharp turn, or force us to respond to a certain situation with a level of immediacy, right? I can't continue on this path that I'm going on because I have to deal with this now. You know what I mean? I'm getting ready to leave to go to the airport, and my toddler walks into a sharp edge. You know, now they're bleeding. I can't go to the plane because this is happening now. You know what I mean? And then you get to the airport, you find out the flight's delayed for a couple hours. You know, so you got there thinking, I got to book another flight. But nah, you right on time. You know, but you can't see that far ahead. But you can see what's happening now. And one of the things that Chief had told us inside the chat early yesterday was you got to be the best you in the moment, in every moment. You know, you've got to be the highest version of yourself at every moment. And every moment is like you stepping into a different realm. You know, and who are you going to be in this realm? You're not going to necessarily deal with situations, especially the more you learn, where you only have to use one of your faculties to deal with the situation. You know, you may have to be both spiritual and emotional at the same time. You may have to be mental and spiritual at the same time. You may have to be physical and mental at the same time. Mm-hmm. You know, or maybe 3 or 4. You know, or 5, or however many different levels that you have. And that's another thing that Chief was building on during that segment of true fidelity. Like he and Akizak came on and they blessed us with a lot of gems, mm-hmm. You know, during that segment. And speaking of which, the link is in the chat. If anyone wants to join in on the bill, you know, if you hear something or if you have a thought, just join in. don't overthink it. You know what I mean? Like, should I click it? Don't be scared. Right. Don't be scared. Just hey, go with the flow. If you want to go back into the audience, then do so. You don't have to stay on for 4 hours like Chief and Akizak did. But, you know, just jump on, say your piece, and think of it like how you would do Clubhouse. You know, you jump on stage, you say your piece, and then you just recede back into the shadows. All right. But yeah, in terms of pressing on, that's another key piece that sometimes trips people up. When you have a sudden change in your plans, and you freeze up. You don't pivot and say, okay, I can still do this, but I just need to make this adjustment, or maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Let me step back and look. But you have to do it with a level of objectivity, because sometimes we already have these things in our heads, and we use certain situations that may be in place for us to step back and take an objective look, and we use it to confirm what our bias already was. So you may say, I really don't want to take this flight, because then I'm going to have to see my mother-in-law, and I don't like her. She don't likes me. She doesn't like me. We always go back and forth. She doesn't respect me, but my wife thinks we should get along. I just rather stay here. But I gotta go. And then child bumps their head. It's like, well, trip's done. Yeah, let's go to the hospital. Yeah, I'm sorry, mom, but little Timmy came first. We have to deal with his health. Or you can say, oh wow, let me pivot a little bit. And I have to deal with my child now. I have to take them to the hospital, and I'll make whatever arrangements I can make. I may not be able to get there when I need to get there, or when I thought I was supposed to get there, but that takes you down a completely different path that you wouldn't have gone down if you hadn't really pressed on and said, okay, I'll stay objective and I'll deal with what I have to deal with now. If you use something as an excuse to do what you wanted to do or what you felt like doing, which is more accurate anyway, then you may miss a blessing as well. Oh, I didn't want to go to school, and now we got COVID, and they saying we got to take this shot that no one is sure of yet, because they just made it in the lab yesterday. So I'm not going to go to school anymore because of this. But everything's opening back up. You still not going to go to school, or you're going to keep using that as your excuse? I was going to go to school 20 years ago, but then the pandemic happened, and I just dropped it. And I never picked it back up. So some things they stop you, and you have to think, well, am I going to do this because I have an unconditional love affair with it, as Zach had brought up, or am I going to do it only because it's convenient? And as soon as it's not convenient, I'm just gonna drop it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting as you were sharing that. I was just going back to the notes, and one of the questions was asked about the challenge about when those want to join our new.
Mm-hmm.
And it says the challenge that one needs to clean themselves up before joining a new. That's the key thing, because as we know, those of us in a new, it's always I call it like that tune-up. Some people get a car. When they get the car, they do the tune-up every 3,000 miles. And the newer cars, I think it's longer than that. It's like 5,000 miles. And I knew, no, you're going to do a tune-up every 500 miles. That may be every week. For some, that may be every quarter. Mm-hmm. The point is, we got cleaning up to do. Why? Why are we cleaning up? Because what happens if you don't clean the old oil out of your car? It slugs. It slugs up. It's sluggish. The car runs rugged. It runs rough. Rugged.
I thought you meant as actual slugs in the muffler.
Huh?
Sludge.
The sludge, right? Okay. The sludge, it just builds up. But my point is that it's the bad performance. Right. When you get to the spark plugs, right, because the carbon that built up, mm-hmm, built up on the tips. And so why do we need a maintenance job, mm-hmm, or a full tune-up? Is because if we don't do it in our mentally, spiritually, psychologically, physically, emotionally, we're going to be sluggish. We're going to be like the old car. And then again, if you don't do a maintenance on a regular basis, you're not going to be able to endure. You're not going to be able to press on. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because why? in order for me to perform, I look at my life as I'm performing. But I can't perform in the way that I need to do if I continue to hold back. And if I didn't make these changes, if I didn't make these adjustments when I eat or what I do mentally, psychologically, the people around, I'm not around a lot of people. I'm very sensitive now with people. And so if I don't make these changes, guess what? That's going to affect me. That's going to affect my performance.
Right, right. It's like you brought to mind a couple of points. But it's like being able to respond with ability, as Chief would say. You know, you don't have the ability to respond because like you got a lot of sludge, you know, going through your system, and you don't take the time to clean it out. You know, which even goes back to your example of Ramadan and the solstice and equinox fast being that tune up, because you give yourself the time to cleanse yourself of all of this old sludge, and you can actually get back out there and fight, you know, with the clear mind. It even reminded me of Yakira Eden's build this first day. She's talking about firing on all cylinders.
Right.
So you may even be clean physically. You know, you might try to keep yourself physically fit, but you might have a messed up mentality. You know, so you're trying to figure out why you're always sick. And I do all these push-ups, do all these sit-ups. I drink green juice every day. I bleed chlorophyll. I don't know why I'm always so messed up. You know, but you may have a messed up mentality or a messed up methodology of how you approach life. And because you're not firing on all cylinders, you know, you're only focusing on one aspect of what it is that you are. The other aspects may they'll lean in a certain direction just to compensate. You know, you got a bad hip, you're gonna lean to one side to compensate. And matter of fact, Zach, because I listened to the segment today, Zach also brought up this idea as well of a compensatory fantasy, right? You have a fantasy to try to compensate for what it is that's going on in your reality, like your current reality. And if you're not careful, you can have a lot of fantasies about what you are or what your life's supposed to look like, regardless of whether or not you put in the work to make that a reality or to make that manifest. You know, and you and I were speaking about what Chief had said. He had given an example of someone trotting through the desert, and he had said that sometimes we look for people to console us when we're doing the work. Like we're doing work, but like we want a reward for it almost. You know, because he had brought up a horse mentality that we sometimes instill in our children, and then we carry into, you know, those children carry that into adulthood, where if I do something, I should get something for doing that. You know, so if I'm good, then I should get candy. You know, or if you can, I remember I promised to, I should probably tax it for that. But one time, like I still have a scar right here, where I think I was like 5 years old, and I was told not to jump in the bed, right? Stop jumping in the bed, and I didn't listen, of course, like because my mother's on the phone, and I by then I knew the signs of when people are on the phone, they can't sit still, they have to walk around. Like by the time you get off a phone call, you're probably on the roof. So I had time, right? So she walked in the room, saw me jumping in the bed, stopped jumping in the bed. It's like, all right, stop. I just watched her. I didn't wait for that lie. It's like, all right, she's busy. Start jumping again. Right? And then she came back. She's like, stop jumping in the bed. I'm not gonna tell you anymore. It's like, okay. And then timing was off. Now we getting this off the needs. Now the edge of my mother's bed head, it was she doesn't throw anything away. She has that to this day. I was 5 and she had it before I was born. but she still has that bed. It's like a bed frame, right? It's a wooden bed frame with this sharp edge, and I timed the jump wrong, right? So she walked away, and then I started jumping, and she turned around. Either she forgot something, or she knew she was gonna catch me. But I tried to stop jumping midair, and it didn't work. So by the time my foot hit the bed again, I was in an awkward position, and I sort of flipped, and I almost turned upside down like this, and I hit my head on the edge of that wooden frame. Right. So now they got me in the hospital. I'm bleeding, and she's right there as compensation for not crying. She promises me a blue Power Ranger, and I shut up. I don't know how bad the damage was, but I had to cash in on that. Never got it. But the point is, you expect for people to console you, or you expect compensation for like if you feel like you're suffering, right? Or if you feel like you're going through something. It's funny. Sovereign Eats say, "You can't hate. Who can't heed will feel, or who can't hear will feel." So yeah, one fell off and bumped his head. Yeah, Sister Yafe. I was the monkey jumping on the bed. But yeah, you expect someone to console you for doing what you're supposed to do because you feel like you're carrying a burden, right? And there's actually this clip that I saw I wanted to play. May not be crisp in terms of production. I didn't get to practice this transition, but I'm gonna try it anyway.
Right.
Let me see something here. So I'm gonna play the show.
Leonardo, where are your brothers?
I have no idea.
What do you mean you have no idea?
Raph thinks he can lead the team better than me, so I let him.
That is not your decision to make.
Why not, Sensei? I've had to make every other decision, and I'm tired of it. Those guys have no idea what kind of pressure I'm under, and all they do is complain. Is it too much to ask for a simple thank you?
Of course it is. Leadership is not about being appreciated. It is about responsibility. It doesn't matter that the burden is heavy. It matters that you carry it. Now go find your brothers.
Okay, I was gonna say that the sound is muted for us.
Oh, okay.
I think could everyone hear it? They can hear. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was like an example of it, right? So that was Ninja Turtles, but everybody should be able to recognize that. Right? So with Ninja Turtles, you have Leonardo, who was the leader. Then you had Raphael, who was like his foil, right? He was there to challenge him on everything. And there's Donatello, who was like the brains of the group. And there was Michelangelo. Michelangelo was like comic relief, but he was also the heart of the group. And of course, you have Master Splinter, who's the father figure, and he made sure that everyone played their role, right? So he would always give everyone like some gems on the side that was tailored just for them because he knew all four of them. But Leonardo was chosen as the leader, and he didn't like the fact that Raphael wasn't listening to him, and like it was almost like he expected things to go his way because he was used to, like, he had this thing in his mind, like, I'm the leader, so they should listen. If they don't want to listen, I don't care. You know, because I've been doing everything this whole time. I've been doing this, I've been doing that, and I'm not getting what I think I should get, right? And I think it lined up perfectly with that same point that Chief had made. I thought it was interesting that I saw that video today while I was listening to that segment. You know, so yeah, man. But what he said was key. Like, it doesn't matter that the burden you carry is heavy. What matters is that you carry it, right? And sometimes impressing on, like Chief was saying, you look for people, or you look for the world to console you. And because you're looking for the world to console you, you may wind up going back to the world and getting off the path. So the example that he'd given was someone going through the desert, you know, which is why thumbnail for this segment is the desert, right? Someone going through the desert, and because you get to a certain point, you know, and it's burdensome, you know, you feel like you're discouraged on this journey, you may get the inkling to want to turn back and go back to the world, you know. And he was saying that if you look for something to console you, like if you look around, like if you eat sand and drink salt water, it's not going to sustain you. What sustains you is your practice, you know. What sustains you is doing what you're supposed to do every day. You know, those things we consider to be small because there's not this huge payoff, and there's not fireworks and fanfare when you accomplish it. No one is there in your closet ready to pop out if you make your bed after getting up in the morning. You know, it's like, yeah, you made your bed. You know, it's not like when we're children. It's like, yeah, you brushed your teeth. Oh, look at that, you went potty. Look at that, you're such a big boy. It's like, no, you don't get that throughout your journey. You know, you'll never get it. And that's what Leonardo was looking for. He was looking for praise, and he was looking for thanks. You don't do it for appreciation. You do it because it's your responsibility. You know, you're not pressing on because you feel like it. You're pressing on because you know this thing has to be accomplished. You know, it's like the book of Eli.
Mm-hmm. You know, as you were sharing the story with about the Ninja Turtles, it was making me, it was recalling, my mind was being recalled, and it started dawning on me, like this past strong and then last strong, and it's amazing what adults, like their birthday or Earth Day. Mm-hmm. It's amazing to me that you're an adult and you're still acting like you're 8 years old, 5 years old. And they want, again, the attention. And I'm like, what the hell? Oh, yeah, I'm like, and so what, you know, and us and I knew we don't get caught up in this, but but what made me think about it, it's like, it is amazing how the adults are worse than the kids. I mean, it's like, get over it. I'm like, really? Is it really that, you know, and I say this because where I was working, you know, and that's why when I go in there, I go in and tap in and get the hell out of there, because a lot of them are irritating to me. But anyhow, that's another story. But it's not just them. People are mostly irritating to me now, because why? They're so caught up in this mode called life. And it's like I said, they're like little children, immature children that needs attention. You know, either if you're a person that it's like, some example, there are people that are afraid to live alone. They got to be surrounded by people or some type of noise or some type of something to, like you said, to fulfill them or to get that type of acknowledgement from the world. They pull off of it, because if not, they don't. It's like they can't survive without that. And so, as you were sharing that, it was just amazing. And again, I watch people a lot, and so from it, I just it's amazing to me that when I watch people and I notice with them, with the little craziest things they hold on to, it really amazes me how I'm like, dude, how old are you and you still acting like that? But that's just how people are. Sapta Ahava was saying in the chat, this reminds me of Philippians 3:14. I press towards the mark of the prize of the high calling of God in the most. I ain't use that part after I see the CG. I don't use that no more, because I stopped. I ain't giving no props for that. But anyhow, I know what you meant. Softer. And the Most High. I'm just gonna call him the Most High. Okay, Yahweh Shad. We're gonna call him Yahweh Shad. And so it's just, like she just mentioned in Philippians, you just keep pressing on. you again, you're focusing on like it says in the verse. You're focusing on the mark. What is your target?
Right.
It's that target. I remember when I used to learn to play darts. You know, I don't did for play, but you always want to get to the bullseye. Okay, but it takes what? Practice.
Right.
You got to keep practicing until you get to the bullseye. Maybe you might have gotten it after the 5th or 6th time, or the 10th or the 20th time of getting that, throwing that dart. But then if you keep or as I hear Aki Zach in sports, like I'm not a basketball player. I never was good at throwing hoops. But look how many times Michael Jordan had to practice to get those hoops and those 3-pointers. Again, it's like that mark. You got to hit that mark. And so I just wanted to share and to add to what Sato was sharing.
Yeah,
it's about staying focused.
Right, and even knowing, being aware of what's most important in the moment, because sometimes we're looking for that praise, but what we're aiming at isn't necessarily what would be the most beneficial for us. It's just the one that would be most beneficial to our egos, or the one that we think would get us the most praise or the most money, which would in turn give us more praise. You know, so even with the darts example, depending on the type of darts you're playing, you don't always want to aim for the bullseye. You know, sometimes you want to aim for a 20, or you want to aim for a 10.
Okay, never knew that.
Yeah, some games you start at a certain number. I can't remember the number. And each time you throw a dart, you hit a point on the board. Each point on the board is designated a certain amount of points. And you want to reduce your score to 0. But you gotta hit 0 exactly. Right? So I think bullseye is 50. Right? I'm not sure exactly.
Right, I'm not.
But let's say it is 50. And you have 20. That 50 is too much. You need a 20 or 2 10s or 4 5s.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So even with the darts example, you still want to make sure you aim for what's going to be most beneficial, not for what everyone says is most beneficial. You don't always want to aim for a hole in one. You know, like going back to earlier when I was mentioning Chief's point about you not necessarily needing to make leaps and bounds on your first step. You know, you might be doing a stutter step, or like I was mentioning ice skating earlier. I still can't, I could barely get around the rink without falling like 10 or 20 times. You know what I mean? But every time I got up, I made steady progress. And then I'd be like, it's actually been a minute since I fell. You know, before I couldn't go 3 seconds without falling. And then I couldn't go 10 seconds without falling. So you're making those small, it's like compound interest. You're making this compounded effort, and every time you do it, it's like you get better. You may not be a natural, you may not start out right away, but you still made that steady progress. Even I was doing a series on Baba Olatunji with the sketching series, and he had made a quote that had pointed to just the power of will, right? The power of undeterred will, and how it can beat out talent, because you can't really. An example is made in this poem that he quoted, that it's like trying to convince a plant not to grow. You can't tell a plant not to reach for what it was designed to reach for. And in the same instance, you should be able to reach for what you're designed to reach for too. There's components about how you make your journey that assist in that, right? So instead of surrounding yourself with things that may sabotage you, surrounding yourself with elements that assist that, like, of course, you gotta have your community around you, right? And having a culture, because it's like having an operating system and a computer. Right? You can't use a computer without an operating system. And you got Windows on the disk, but you ain't got no computer. It don't really help as much, right?
What?
So I'm saying operating system in terms of you have Windows that you use, or I'm on an iPad, so I use iOS. That's like where you put all of your applications. So I can't hit start, or or I can't click on any icons because nothing's going to show up. It's just going to be a computer with nothing to tell it how to operate itself. You know, so that you could think of your culture like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So,
you gotta have a way of operating. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. I was just gonna ask. No, go ahead, because I don't want you to miss that point. I don't want you to miss that point.
Okay, I was just gonna say, you want to make sure that your culture is solid, and it helps you to move forward in a way that facilitates your growth, or facilitates your movement towards your purpose, or your action that takes you towards your purpose. You know, so that's all I was gonna say, because sometimes your culture is what's stripping you up. Sometimes it's what you do every day, and your culture is what you do. It's not what you profess.
Right.
Right. So it's not just what you wake up and profess every day. You know, practicing your culture, again, it goes back to your practices. That's what's gonna sustain you. Like, do I wake up every day and make sure that not a day passes that I don't read the Anu way, or not a day passes that I don't give thanks for the day, for the life that I have, or I don't check in with my community members, or I don't make sure that I'm exhibiting all of these required qualities, or I don't tune in with the Most High. It's like all of these different checkpoints to make sure that you're moving on point, right? And if you're doing that, then when you do hit a roadblock, or you do hit like a snag, you'll be like, okay, let me go back, step back, and check to make sure I'm firing on all cylinders. You know, like we were talking about on first date. If I'm not firing on all cylinders, what's not what's low right now? What's not getting what it's supposed to get? Is it my emotional body? Is it my physical body?
Right.
You know, did I not think this through? You know, am I moving in alignment with spirit, or am I out of alignment? Those are times to step back and reassess yourself, instead of, like I was doing, cursing at nothing, cursing into the heavens. You know?
Would that almost be like chess? And the reason I brought that up, because I think about El Karar when he did the segment yesterday on the art of strategy. Wouldn't that almost be similar to like chess and strategy? Because pressing on, it's where you broke it down. It's like sometimes it's about a strategy. Yeah,
because I think the point was raised yesterday during his segment. You have to be able to select the right goals.
Right.
So if you start off with the wrong goals, then it's, no matter how hard you try to press on, you might be pressing on into something that's not going to be good. It's like me trying to force my way into a police station violently. It's not going to end well for me.
Right.
I'm pressing on into my own demise. But if you know it's something that you're supposed to do, and you know that you have certain things that are going to try to make you resist that. If I have a habit of checking social media every minute or so, and I have a paper to write, I can only write so much if I write down 2 sentences, and then I'm on Instagram for 20 minutes, and I write 2 more sentences. You know what I mean? That's pressing on, resisting the urge that this addiction that I've developed is pushing me towards that, you know. But pressing on is also, like you were mentioning before, it has that strategic element to it. There is an element of stopping to check your every minute. There is a way that you can stop and check to see how you're moving, like I was saying earlier, to see if what you're doing is assisting your ability to fire on all cylinders, or if it's putting some sludge into your system. You know what I mean? So you may be doing something that's like, I was much more focused yesterday. I didn't do nothing different except eat that last piece of cheesecake that I shouldn't have eaten. You know, that's all I did. You know, it wasn't that much different.
Right. And I was just reading the chat. It's funny because you were mentioning about skating. I'm not good at roller skating, but ice skating, I could roller skating. I'll fall down and everything. I haven't done it in some years, but ice skating, I was an ice skater. I can ice skate no problem. You know, I may fall down maybe once, but roller skating, I could never really roller skate, and it's weird because you got 4 wheels. That should be much easier than ice skate now.
Right.
But I was just reading in the chat. Ross Chris was mentioning skating was definitely a great experience. Ross was also saying skating helped us both see the benefit of playing the long game. Okay.
Yep.
Also, he mentioned he was speaking to a brother today about the benefits of a man having elders versus a man doing things on his own, like the skating. Us working with an experienced skated helped us progress at a steady pace. Yeah.
Right. Because he had his I think your stepdad was out there as well, and he used to play hockey. I think he was a goalie, and he was skating like nothing. But he showed us, okay, this is how you want to move. Like you push off like this, you use your toes for a certain thing.
Yeah.
And you want to push side to side and forward.
Yeah.
You know, this is how you stop. But you're going to have to just feel it out. Right. We did feel it out. And I kind of had a chip on my shoulder because I saw all of these. And this is like something about motivations too. Because I'm really mellow, but I have an unhealthy, borderline unhealthy sense of competition because I'm competing with these 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds who've been probably skating since they could walk. And I'm like, there's no way this midget is going to beat me. There's no way I'm going to let you skate circles around me. Because one of them, he did this thing where his feet were like this and he was just making like a perfect circle around me. And he's just looking me up and down like, you must be new here. I'm like, I'm gonna strangle this. I'm gonna strangle this little boy. Right. So yeah, Raheem, that was a good experience. Yeah, man. You want to continue in the chat?
Sure.
Did we skip anything?
Was that Raheem or was that Ross?
That's Raheem.
Okay, my bad. I thought I see Ra. Okay.
Right.
I get it now.
Okay.
It was you, Raheem. My apologies. Sovereign Eats mentions so true about undetermined will because something as simple as exercising in the dawning simulates the accomplishments of a goal. You want to accomplish more as the day develops. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That is definitely, you couldn't have said it more perfectly. That's exactly, because I know when I started out that day, regardless, I'm perfecting it. You know, it's like tweaking it. And then so Sovereign Eats also mentions because the brain registers exercise as a win. Yes. Exactly.
Right.
Raheem mentions in the chat, see the growth that could have. Okay. See the growth they could have if they were to keep it going. Exactly.
And that's a continuation of an earlier comment. He said, even through the stumbles, falls, and sore butts, the drive to press on or move forward plays a massive role in the heights and growth you're able to see in the future. The ones who stay down never see the growth they could have if they were to keep going. That's really true, you know, and that's the essence of.
And our skating was hard. I don't know. It kind of was going through a thing. I said, no, I'm okay. Again, pressing on. I'm gonna press on. I don't care what it's gonna do, you know. But you know, for me, ice skating was hard at first until I learned and mastered it. And it's like I said, I can skate around and everything. I haven't ice skated in a couple of years, but I know that it's like riding a bike. You know, you never really forget. But in playing hockey, I wasn't the goalie. The goalies are, you know, it's funny you mentioned that. Goalies are tough. I was a winger. I was a wing. I was a left wing. And
I don't know hockey. What does the left wing do?
Basically, the left wing is like score, and then the dang it, I'm trying to remember. basically, you have the left wing and the right wing. So basically, their job is scoring. They're scoring, but also leading everything back to the middle and to the defense. But basically, it's just, you know, the wings, they stay on the sides, and then they, you know, of course, I'm trying to remember from my early years of ice skating and playing hockey. But that was only position I remember I mastered, was my left wing. I was right wing sometimes, but see, when you're on a wing side, when you're on the wing side, you basically they're feeding that puck to you. They're feeding that puck to you.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, but give thanks for the explanation. Okay, so you were on the wing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And sorry, hockey just pushed the puck with bent sticks, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, man. You know, now that you mention it, it amazes me sometimes. Just talking about sports, but it amazes me sometimes how much sports simulate warfare.
Yeah.
You know, where is Aki Algara anyway? Where is he?
Yeah, when you need him. that master teacher.
Right. You know, because he was spitting some fire from the art of war. And he touched on a lot of great points in terms of what you should aim to do when you're going into battle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and again, making sure that your victory is one that befits a superior person.
Mm-hmm. Oh. And you know, and it's interesting.
I thought someone was shooting. Sorry.
Oh no, I heard it. It sounded like you dropped something. That's all. Okay. But it's interesting. Like, you know, at a war, it's amazing that some of those battles, they didn't have enough. You know, they didn't. You know, like your opponent might have had like 10,000 soldiers, and you might have had 1,000. Now, can you imagine the 1,000 know that their opponent is triple their size?
10 times.
10 times.
Yeah.
But they can't focus on the size. They got to focus on what? The battle.
Yeah, more importantly, they have to focus on the strategy.
Strategy is exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
There's so many things to that, you know, and even before you go to war, if your generals are wise and if your statesmen are wise, they'll make sure that they can take down the opponent before armies even line up. You know, or they could even at least weaken them, you know, because they may have 10,000, but they may have had 20,000 before we started doing some funkiness behind the lines. You know what I mean? And you may even have some other things that you can do to mess with your opponents. Like, let's say the numbers were more evenly matched. Let's say they had 8,000 and you had maybe 5,500.
Right.
You know, and I'll always remember this strategy in terms of attrition. Attrition meaning you're wearing out your opponent's forces. You know, but as simple as splitting your forces into two with day shift and a night shift, and you just harass your enemies day and night. You know, you're sleeping on ships, and then that's the final day of the battle where it's like, all right, we've been keeping y'all for 5 days straight. You know, where y'all could beat us now. You know, and we've been attacking your food stores, so you ain't got nowhere to eat. You know, so there's a lot of ways to press on, even if you think your enemy is bigger than you. Right, and this had happened so many times when the children of Israel they were on their way to the promised land, and they were traveling through all of these different territories, and they were being told, all right, wipe them out. Him? Him? You know, it's like, yeah, y'all good, y'all got it. You can take him. It's like, Moses, come over here, Moses. Let's talk. Huddle up. You sure we need to? And like, all right, I hear you whispering. I don't like it. So here's what we're gonna do. Y'all can stay over there if y'all want to whisper, but y'all ain't a part of us no more. You know, go handle it. You know, they handle it, they come back. It's like, we did just like you said. And it's like, I know what I'm doing. Like Chief would say, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm telling you to do. So, you get told all of these times, go deal with this one, go deal with that one. And every time you have this doubt because of your own insecurities. You know, we were just slaves a couple of months ago. And now here it is, you're telling us to go on this military campaign throughout all of these different people who've established themselves in this country. You know, you sure we can do this? You know, so I just wanted to, there was a scripture that I wanted to touch on, because there are certain aspects, there are certain aspects of your life where you can't undo things, right? And this is why it's so important to give it your all, no matter what. And if at the end of the day, you know, something is permanently removed from the table, you can at least say, I did everything with as much integrity as I possibly could have. You know? And that couldn't have been for me because I did everything I was told to do, and I held down the laws. I wasn't moving from a place of ego, you know. And then it comes to find out what you thought was for you wasn't for you, you know. But aiming for it helped you to get at least close enough, and then you were told to make a pivot. And it's like there's a comedian, Bill Burr, who describes this perfectly. And he was saying, like, you know, when you're done talking to a toddler and you sort of like turn their head in the direction you want them to go, and you just push them and they just keep walking. It's sort of like that. Like, they're marching towards this goal, and he's like, yeah, do this. Now, the thing you thought you were going to get, because you can't see that far, is, and you weren't told you were going to get it, you just assumed it because you were given limited information. Go over there and do this. That's all you needed to know. But you want to conjure up in your mind all of these other things that you probably should be getting. So I told you to go over there and do this, and you try to alter it to make it suit your vision, right? And then he's like, all right, stop. He just turns your head a little bit and pushes you in the next direction. But some people resist that push, right? And they want to press on in the wrong direction.
Right.
So sometimes things need to be severed so that you don't press on in that direction. But you might still want to go, you know, and it can lead to permanent damage, you know, and you may be able to recover from it. You know, if it's something as small as, like me, I can't get that hydrometer back. That tool is gone. Glass is probably still somewhere under some corners in the kitchen. You know, there's nothing I can do to recover that. I have to buy a new one, right? But one of my coworkers, I knew him for a while. When we were young, we used to go to the same church, but I met him again. He works on the same key that I work on. Okay. And he was telling me, like, because he has a fighter spirit, he used to fight, he used to do amateur boxing, but he used to get into a lot of fights too, right? And he really wanted to go, he had aspirations of going pro, but it was struck short because he got into a fight and he got stabbed in one of his lungs. So he can't fight no more. You know what I mean? So it's pressing on in the wrong direction, right? As opposed to being obedient when your direction has changed. Like, even you were telling me, your initiation was like, it was being facilitated by the Wicked Witch of the West.
Right.
You know, she'd tell you, you got to do this to be initiated, and it didn't fall. It fell through, right? At some point, the relationship fell through, and you would redirect it somewhere else. You know?
Right, because at that moment, I did not realize that she was practicing evil. I knew some things, but not as much. But I didn't learn it until after the journey. But it didn't matter. I didn't focus on her. I didn't focus on her disobedience. I didn't focus on her craziness. That's when my Bob was like, no, you focus on the task. The task was, do this, and that. And that's what he was sharing with me. And that's the thing, like you just said. Sometimes we will focus on the wrong thing. Or say if you have to change directions. What happens if I know, say we're driving and we have to, it's funny, Google Maps or whatever, or directions, you got to get directions where you're going. But then say, for instance, you go in an area and the signal's off. or your phone doesn't work, or for some people the phone dies out. So now you don't have no directions. How do you press on then?
Mm-hmm.
So now are you going to rely on, most people don't rely on their eternal senses, or did they prepare for the journey without Google Maps or without? So now I press on and I continue, even though I'm the direction I'm going, I'm wondering, am I going in the right direction?
Mm-hmm.
But then if you got an eternal sense, and if you've been preparing for the journey, it'll get you through, even though the devices failed you.
Right. And
Okay.
sometimes you just gotta ask for directions.
And I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Then again, it's asking directions. Well, I'm trying to get to this, such as I wrote it down. Oh yeah, you just keep going straight. But
Right.
see, most people don't do that.
Right.
Going back to what's said in the chat, we in Anu, we have elders, we have mentors, we have leaders, we have chief. Could you imagine living your life without those sense of directions? Going back to directions, I can tell you right now, my life would never be where I'm at today if I didn't have that sense of direction, that sense of counsel, that sense of because I, we were talking about earlier, I was on the wrong path before I knew. I mean, my Bible was steering me,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't until now you're on the path and like, okay, well, we were talking about earlier about culture.
Mm-hmm.
I knew something was up with the culture was off, but
Right.
you don't know why. Or people
Right.
will say the person that they're listening to, or their elected officials, or their ministers, or whoever, they'll say, wow, well, we know we don't trust them. We know that they're evil, but we're going to listen to them anyway. But so if you listen to them, you're going to go down that bad path. So now it was like was mentioned about for us as we started on pressing on. What do you do to clean up your act now?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing okay, now did you know that you were going down the wrong path, and you've been doing it like in the scriptures where, you know what? I think of the Wizard of Oz. Dorothy, if she had got directions, it would have taken her that whole journey. But she had to go through that whole journey to get to where she wanted to go. But the point is, or the children of Israel, it took them 40 years to get through. That's the part I was going to share in the scriptures. It took them, but if they had listened and followed the proper directions from the elder, we call Moses, they wouldn't have had to take that long to get through that journey.
You know what? It's something that's interesting too, right? Those are two examples. One is with the children of Israel, where they're getting clear directions, specific details. This is how you move. This is where you're going. This is what you're going to do when you get there. This is what you're going to do on the way. I'm feeding you from heaven.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm giving you water from rocks, from stones. You know, and you pissed my servant off so much that he struck the stone, and he had something permanently taken away from him because he couldn't cross over anymore. You know what I mean? And Moshe said it like twice, right? Twice in Deuteronomy. He said it in chapter 3 and in chapter 4. You know, he said, this is Deuteronomy chapter 3:21. They were being commanded not to fear all of the other kingdoms that they were passing. You know, and he said, and I besought the Lord at that time, saying, O Yahuwah Elohim, thou hast begun to show thy servant thy greatness and thy mighty hand. For what else is there in heaven or in earth that can do according to thy works and according to thy might? I pray thee, let me go over and see the good land that is beyond Jordan, and that goodly mountain and Lebanon. But Yahuwah was wroth with me for your sakes. I would not hear me. And Yahuwah said unto me, let it suffice thee. Speak no more unto me of this matter. Right? And that's when he was telling them, you know, you got to appoint Joshua now, because after after y'all get to the river, he's going to be leading them across. You're going to be staying here and you're going to watch them cross over.
Right.
You're not going. Right. Now this is chapter 4. And he's saying, furthermore, Yahuwah was angry with me for your sakes and swear that I should not go over Jordan, that I should not go into that good land which Yahuwah thy Elohim giveth thee for an inheritance. But I must die in this land. I must not go over Jordan, but ye shall go over and possess the good land. Take heed for yourselves, lest ye forget the covenant of Yahuwah thy Elohim, which he had made with you, and make you a graven image or the likeness of anything, which the Lord, which Yahuwah thy Elohim forbiddeth thee. For Yahuwah thy Elohim is a consuming fire, even a jealous Elohim. Right? Mm-hmm. And he's saying now, like, y'all cost me, like he was mad with me for your sakes, but really I cost myself because I got angry for y'all's sake. I got angry at y'all, right? And in that couple of seconds of anger, as quick as it took me to curse after that thing broke, that's only really intensely angry for like 10 seconds, right? And after that, it's like, there's no point. I already broke something. That's why I'm mad. I can't break something else.
Right.
So what am I going to do?
Right. So, you can't re-break it after it's broken. Right.
So it's like, I want to do over, But if I got to do over, then I wouldn't break it. I wouldn't be mad. It's like, I got to let it go. Because no type of fantasy is going to get me out of this. It's broken. I just grabbed the broom and started sweeping it up. What helped was at the same time I was doing that, I was listening to one of the videos from the recent retreat, the winter retreat, and everyone was drumming and singing and chanting around the fire. When Chief was doing an affirmation. I think I was on 14 minutes, 53 seconds. It just broke. Everything happened. It didn't even happen in slow motion. So it slipped out my hand, and I was like, well, there we go. That's it. Nothing I could do. Which, but even with pressing on, even with asking for directions, there's the Buddhist story, right? About the Buddha and his disciple, his main attendant, Ananda, right? And Ananda was cool because he was capable of he was capable of being the closest attendant of the Buddha, but he conversed with him, he listened to all the lessons. He was one of the few servants who asked him direct questions, and he made sure that he could remember all of the lessons. He was called the treasurer of the Dhamma, right? Dhamma being the teachings of Buddha. And he could remember them, but he could remember that his storage of that information was so precise that he didn't really reflect on it much because he didn't want to distort the lessons if he had to reteach them. Because sometimes he was even trusted to be a substitute teacher, right? He would make sure that Buddha was cool, his place was cleaned up. At night, he would keep guard. He made sure Buddha was straight. You ain't got to worry for nothing. Right. You know what I mean? And he used to travel with them a lot too. So they were traveling to this village, and they were going along the road, and they were trying to make it there before sundown, right? So that they were moving at a really quick pace, and they saw this farmer, right? So they asked for directions. It's like, how long until we get to the village? And he was like, oh, not long, 2 miles, just 2 miles. and he smiled, right? And Buddha saw him smile. He smiled back. And I'm just like, what the heck are they smiling about? And they keep walking. And then they come across a lady who's gathering firewood. And they ask her, because they went 2 miles. And they asked her, and it's like, how long until we get to the village? And she's like, oh, it's not far. It's just 2 miles, just 2 more miles. And she smiled, and chuckle, right? And the Buddha smiled and chuckled. And Nanda's like, I don't like this. I don't know where this is going. So they get to the 2 mile mark again, and they see a guy in the forest cutting some wood, right? He's cutting some trees out. So they ask him, say, excuse me, sir, how long until we get to the village? It's like, oh, it's not far. It's right there, 2 more miles, and then he looked at Buddha, Buddha looked at him, and they both laughed. And Ananda, he got irritated, so he dropped his bag. He's like, all right, look, I've been traveling with you for 40 years, and I learned what it's like to live with you, right? And I know, like, sometimes you don't necessarily have to ask you questions because I've learned to trust you, right? But you got to tell me what the hell is going on, because when we asked the farmer, he laughed and you laugh, and y'all ain't let me on the joke. Then we asked the old lady who's gathering firewood, the same thing happened. Y'all laugh. And now this boy, you ask him, and y'all laugh again, right? You don't know these people, and they don't know you. What y'all got to laugh about? Because the first one told me 2 miles. The first one told us 2 miles. Second one told us 2 miles. This is, we almost traveled 10 miles, and we still ain't see the village yet. And Buddha's like, listen, I laugh with these people because we're in the same profession, right? We're in the same business. We're in the business of encouraging people, right? So telling people just a little bit more, just push on just a little bit more, I've been doing that my whole life. So telling someone on the onset that they have to travel 10 or 15 miles, they might drop everything and just not do it, at the beginning. But if you keep telling them 2 miles more, 2 miles more, 2 miles more, they can make it to 200 miles, right? As opposed to just telling them on the outset, you got 15 miles to go. You might get discouraged. But that's what it's like being in the moment too. You from step to step to step, and you could even, I do this sometimes when I'm running. Like after I've crossed the 3 or 4 mile mark, and I realize I'm getting tired, I do it like throughout the whole thing, but I'm more intensely focused on it because it's like, all right, what can I do right now to not think about how long I've been running? Right. And I focus on, all right, let me just focus on each step, because you could just focus on a step. It's like, all right, that step was kind of bad because my hip was off balance and my ankle buckled a little bit. Let me make sure all of my weight is centered. Let me make sure I push forward properly. I noticed a lot of muscles ain't engaging in my right leg like they're engaging in my left leg. Let me make sure I focus on, right, is that my right ankle? Maybe I need to work on that when I get home. Like I could focus on that and just focus on the technique. When I got up today, did I meditate? Did I do my movements? Did I clean up my space? Did I command the day? Did I make sure that I have everything that I need before I left the house, so I'm not making a U-turn when I'm 15 minutes away from work because I forgot my key card or whatever. It's making sure that you do those small things to ensure that your life looks good right now, the best that it could, instead of focusing on this future that may not necessarily happen. Like Chief has always said, your purpose is being in the moment. Your life purpose is in the moment. It's not in the future, and it's not in the past. It may not be behind you. It's in the moment. And in the moment, like Moshe chose to strike the rock out of anger.
Right.
And he determined what was going to happen. And we may not in the moment recognize how far-reaching our actions are going to affect the future. You might see it as something that's innocuous, but it really may be something that's major that hits you. I'm going to stop talking now. Give you a chance to hop in.
No. It as you were sharing that story, there were journeys like that I was on. where again you had to trust that master, or you had to trust that leader or that elder. And then again, when you're going through that, you get impatient. You know,
Right.
I look back when you're younger, you know, when you think you know everything. There was a time I thought when you're 20 something, you think you know everything. You like, that's why I laugh at people now. I'm like, oh really? Live a little longer and you'll see, because
I was that sarcastic teenager.
Exactly, because I remember a time where I thought I knew it. I got in trouble because what? I thought I knew it all. And so that is why on this journey, our community is so important. Community and being around people that are going to hold you accountable. But more so when you have, I mean, for me growing up my whole life, I've always had elders. And that also is a reason why it made me who I am today. I appreciate them. I still do. I always honor that, because I look at the missteps I made. I look at also not just missteps, because I made small missteps, or the missteps I made were not as big as some others that made it when they didn't have an elder there. And so what I appreciate, what you were sharing the story about Buddha, is that because I actually went through a moment where it is in Denver, Colorado. This is some years ago, where pressing on, it was hiking, and I had a backpack, and I was dealing with a young woman. I remember at the time we were hiking. That's the first time I've ever done it that way. We hiked for 32 miles. And I can't believe
your sound, man, just not you hike for 30 what?
32 miles.
Wow.
Hiking with a backpack. And I look back at that. That was my days when I was Catholic. And Pope John Paul II was at Mile High Stadium. So Mile High Stadium in Denver, Colorado. I'll never forget it. And it was not just me, it was a bunch of youth. We were youth. And my point is, from that moment, I never hiked that long, never did anything like that. So when they told us that how far we, and I'm like, oh my gosh, but it didn't seem like it, because we were communicating, and then I was excited and we're having fun. I didn't even think about how that backpack was heavy because of all that hiking. But the point is, we did it. And so not even looking at, wow, look at the journey. That's the first time I've ever, I've never done a marathon or so, but that was the only time I've hiked that long. Okay. And again, you look back and you're like, wow, look at those little people look like ants. Yeah. It's like, we just came from over there. And so, but I remember it was in Denver, Colorado. But the point with that is, just like you're saying, when you have, if they had told us we were going to hike that, I would have done it. That's my point. Right. I would never have even considered doing it if they had told it. They just said, no, y'all just going to hike. I forgot, and my cousin was with me too. I forgot who told us. But my point is, I wouldn't have done it if they told me it was going to be 32 miles. I don't even want to think about 32 miles now. But the point is, pressing on regardless. Even though it didn't seem like it, and we were having fun along the journey. Okay. And I remember those moments. So that's going back to the story you were sharing. You're gonna need sometimes when you have, like I said, I think about my Baba, and I think about Chief. How many times have Chief came in there and he gives a task, right? And he don't tell us the end game. He just like, no, I'm just gonna give you one part, and then before you know it, I'm like, wow, because he knew if he had told us the whole thing, we wouldn't have done it. We wouldn't have done it. Right. A lot of us in Anu.
The first step is the important one.
Exactly.
Right? He tells you to take the first step. You don't want to turn around after the first step, but you realize as you move in, wow, this is cool. I like this. It's a nice journey. It's smooth. I get to explore different topics. You know, I get to build with different people. I even get to explore and bring out some talents that I may have buried because of like you were talking about before, insecurities. Yeah. So, and that was one of the questions I wanted to bring up too. But I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I was just saying. It's funny you just saying that. It's like I'm private. I don't go live. I don't like doing this. I won't be doing. If it wasn't for I knew I would be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do my. But again, getting past the comfort zone, but all at the same time, we're in a movement. And you know, the hardest thing is funny. You were saying you know the hardest part was those truth sessions. And you're getting beyond that, pressing on beyond that. But that got me to the level where of my past life where I had to endure something that was challenging.
Right. And you're really pushing through your internal resistance to change.
Right.
Yeah, that's the resistance that you're pressing on through. You're not pressing on against. This isn't like an admonishment to be hard-headed, you know, and press on. Like someone tells you not to do something, and it's like, but I'm gonna persevere in the wrong direction. It's like, nah. A part of pressing on is stopping to listen to correct counsel, because you don't want to press on in a direction that you're not sure of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and how do you get sure? You seek counsel. You go to your elders, you go to your Yah, and you make sure that what it is that they're telling you isn't something that you're going to try to convolute later.
Mm-hmm.
So you can still pick up what you want on the way out.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I don't want to bring up the Walmart runs.
But life moves on.
Right.
As you keep pressing on, you know, it moves on. Even though the world is still stuck, or as they say, stuck on stupid. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The world's still stuck on, but the thing is we press on. And then it's like when you go through those hardships, when you go through those struggles, when you embrace those challenges and you move beyond those challenges anyway, regardless that it seems impossible.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Aki Rahim said, me and Master Menyelek clearly looked at a place, but like Chief said, do the right things the wrong way and learn how to do them right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And there are other people there too who, just like us, you know, first time skating, and that was part of the challenge, because now you're not only skating, because there's packed out there. It wasn't like one or two people. There's at least 50 people on the skating rink itself.
Right.
And apparently they usually have like guardrails or handrails to hang on to.
Right.
I already told you, the first time I do stuff is never it's never the way it should. It doesn't have the training wheels.
Right. And the first thing you had to learn is to stop.
Right. I had to learn to stop because there's like an obstacle course, because other people were falling in front of you. And I was like, how do I turn? How do I turn?
Right.
You know?
And then you don't want to follow on them. You don't want to trip over them. And yeah.
I didn't want nobody to lose no fingers, because ice skates are sharp. You know, they're dangerous. So I was like, how are these people just casually skating? Like, don't you know someone could lose an appendage? Like, get out the way. Clearly I can't skate. But yeah, man, it's a part of it. And I think Anu Radio says something to that effect too. She says the mindset that precedes the action is everything. While Adon and Aki Rahim were tackling this new skill, I had to get past the insecurity of the rink not having borders. Yeah, exactly. Excuse me. Not having comfort zones. Getting past comfort zones. Let me see if I can. I think we a little behind in the chat.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna speed through
sure.
these real quick. Sovereign Eat says, yes, Abba, exactly. It's that chaos that needs the direction in order to produce. We all need that level of authority or authorship in our lives. Yes, Master Menyelek, but then they refused Yah's direction and requested a king, because the other nations had kings that were men, that were mere men. Like, oh, foolish Israelites. We still do it today.
Yeah.
We still do it today. There's certain things that we're told to do, but we rather have a boss. I'd rather work a job for someone who's gone through the growing pains of starting a company. Aki Rahim says, interesting you pulled from this text as I've been digging into Deuteronomy. You see Moses continuing to press on and beg for the Israelites, even though they continue to ignore what's being said. Yes. One time, I was like, I'm going to destroy these people. And Moses like, hold on. You made a promise. You made that promise. Like, very cool. Get your boys. Get your people. Get your man. Get your mans.
Right.
You see that the laws are being explained very carefully, but only a few decide to carefully follow them. This made me think about when Chief says this way of life is not for all, only the heavenly.
Yeah.
Only the heavenly ones will hear the voice of Yah and follow the commandments. Your autocorrect is crazy. So everyone will not have the courage or drive to press on and become great, right? Because they're seeking external. They're seeking for the external to sustain them, and it's really not. In a lot of ways, that's where the resistance is coming from. You're internalizing those external values or those external principles. And you're trying to make Yah's vision and that external environment work together somehow. It's not going to happen.
Right.
You're trying to make them compromise in some way.
Right, which most people do. They make compromises, or they will cheat through it, or definitely with the compromising or excuses.
Right.
Anything to get over doing what they're supposed to be doing, what is right. Where this is how the world is today.
Yeah, you brought up something in that segment too, and you had made reference to us all carrying a certain seed within us, and I think it was based on what we were talking about the Lion King, and the sower and the seed came up, and I think you and Chief had mentioned like everyone having that seed, and needing to plant it and nurture it and watch it. Ensure that it grows, and that seed being that your core reason for being. It's like your purpose or the question you came to answer, right? And that was one of the questions I wanted to ask.
Okay.
So what seed are you carrying within you?
Good question.
I had mentioned during the study session, in terms of narrowing it down, I've always seemed to, in terms of just the experiences I've always wound up in, anytime I deal with working in any type of environment, I always wind up dealing with inventory. Every single time. I have to keep account of not just items, but I also was like charged with being the accountant for things that happen. Right? Because I was always the quiet person who was observing everything in the background. So everybody's like, all right, you saw everything. Tell us what happened. Oh God. And it's sort of one of the things that I do with artwork too. Because I got into drawing by watching my eldest brother. Like he did a lot of art, and he still does a lot of artistic projects. He does a lot of carpentry now and epoxy work and stuff like that. But back then he would draw stuff, and I would try to copy the stuff that he drew, right? And then I would try to draw faces, or I'd try like observational drawing. But I was trying to somehow get to the root of what a thing was. As I began to get a little older and able to ask questions. So it's like, what is this thing that I'm looking at? If it's supposed to have a core, And I think that question came from, I think it was like 14, 15. My grandfather had like a library. He used to refer to his house as the library. And there was one book on philosophy, and it was talking about, it was my first introduction to Chief segment on quality versus substance. Because he was talking about the substance, it was talking about the substance of a thing versus its quality. And it used the example of a spoon. And it said, a spoon is just an expression of iron or expression of a metal, right? And you shape it into the form of a spoon, but it's actually still metal, right? It just has a shape now. And because you gave it a shape, you also gave it a function, right? And I look at the thing and I try to reverse engineer it in my head. You know, why is this thing shaped this way? Why is this its an optimal design?
Right.
Why is that the best shape for a guitar?
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? So even focusing on the anatomy of a thing, but not because the body is the most important, but the body is there to facilitate the completion of a task or a goal. There's some core goal or some spirit that the body is there to express. We have 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head and a torso, and all of these fingers and digits. Like, these help us to do what we were designed to do. Just like a tree does what it's designed to do. There's a caterpillar that has this defense mechanism where it makes itself look like a snake. Like, it flips its body upside down, and it looks exactly like a snake, and it will scare off predators because they think, oh no, I don't want to mess with that. That's a snake. It's a caterpillar. It's what you were looking for, but you don't know that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, man. So that was the question I wanted to ask. Whoever's still here in the chat. I saw a bunch from Ra and Sovereign Eats. And I don't know. I'll give you all a chance to respond to that.
Well, as we wait for everyone to respond, I can answer the question as well. What seeds are you carrying within you? Well, one, the seed that you're carrying is going to be the fruit that you bear. So, for me, the seed of the Most High, because the seed has to germinate and it has to take root. If it doesn't have root, and if it doesn't germinate, and if it doesn't germinate in an improper environment, because for a seed to germinate, it has to be in a proper soil. I mean, some seeds can germinate on concrete, some can germinate on certain things, but when we're talking about a specific seed, a specific seed that's germinated in its proper form and proper fertilizer, natural fertilizer. So now, as it germinates and when it begins to build root, does the root go further? It has to go deep down in order before it can reach up. And it reaches down because it's in darkness. But as it reaches and it takes root, now it stretches up because now it peeks through the soil where the sun has to now gaze on it, because the sun has been beaming on. Let's see, that soil is in it. It's beaming on it, but it's sprouting. As it sprouts, it reaches high. So I look at the seed. I look at myself as that seed that it keeps reaching as the sun keeps beaming, and then the sun sets and the moon comes out, and it keeps reaching. You don't see it because it doesn't look like it's got movement. But the more it reaches, it keeps reaching. Before you know it, it sprouts into what? A tree. Or specifically, let's say an orange tree. Because we're now saying Pacific tree. An orange tree is not going to become a grape tree.
Right.
Because it's what? It is Pacific seed.
So you saying you're an orange tree?
No.
That's your seed?
I would say I like watermelon.
Watermelon. See, I
would say watermelon seed. because it's got what? Lots of seeds. And it needs water and sun to, because I'm looking at, if I had to pick a seed, I would use watermelon. Why? Watermelon utilizes a lot of water. It needs a lot of nourishment of water. But it also needs the sun. It needs an equal amount. If it does not have a certain proper amount, it cannot germinate into a proper watermelon. I see you thinking. I see you thinking. I just said the watermelon. I used it as an example. I like watermelon, that's why.
I want to go for the ride, but I feel like you're not answering the question.
Okay.
I'm giving you the the respect of the elder. So I'm like, okay. So I was walking with you, and you touched on a lot of good points, which is the importance of going for the ride. Because you touched on the point that specific seeds need specific nutrients,
right?
Which that's very key. That's super important, because you can't nourish. You can't take care of a tomato seed the same way you may take care of a mango seed.
Right.
They may need different nutrients, and certain plants may need other nutrients too. So you have to be careful in terms of what it is that sustains that food. Even going back to what we were talking about, going through the desert, and you needing your practices to sustain you, as opposed to looking to the world to sustain you. Because the only way you can do that is if you go back to the comforts of where you came from. But you're on a track to go across the desert, not little ways just to test it out and then go back home. You know what I mean? But yeah, man.
And then also with that seed, can that seed withstand the natural elements around it? Meaning wind. If maybe it's too hot, maybe that specific seed, it can't withstand too much heat.
Right.
Or if it's going to be flooded, if it gets so much water, can that seed be flooded out of the? These are all different parts of the elements. Huh?
Right. You're dealing with those 4 elements. You got the air, because they need space too. They need space to grow. Can't plant them too close together. They need fire from the sun. They need that earth, and they need some water to make sure that they grow. Too much of any of these things might be an issue. Too little could be an issue too. So you got to even balance it out. But I was talking about the specific seed you carry in terms of what it is that you'll express, or even put it better, what kind of fruit you're going to bear. So we could even look at the fruit that you bear now. You have, even with your attribute, Herut, right? That level of freedom.
Okay, freedom, right? Okay, okay. So with that coming from bearing is that I'm understanding freedom. I'm understanding the name Herut from the level of freedom. Besides, it's Hebraic, but it's also honor. I'm just going back to my notes.
You're looking for your notes.
I know, but it doesn't matter, because it's supposed to be in you. It's supposed to be in you. So now, as it's germinating, as it germinates, or me as Herut, freedom also means boundaries. Because most people think of freedom, I can do what I want to do. No.
Right. That's like that symbol scar mentality again.
Right.
Like, I'm king, I can do whatever I want.
Right. And I was just thinking of this the other day when my meditations, because I was someone asked me a question about freedom, and I'm like, I get the opportunity to enjoy the Most High gives me the ability to be free. But freedom does not mean that means I do what I want to do. I still have boundaries. Those boundaries, by staying within those boundaries of the laws and the principles of law and how to live, and going back to the germinating of that seed. In order for that seed to nurture properly in its proper space in culture, and it has to have structure, it has to have support. It needs that seed cannot germinate that seed needs a lot of elements to grow properly. Without it, it can't
It can't reach its
germinate.
potential.
I'm sorry?
It can't reach its full potential.
Exactly.
Because it's gonna grow.
Right, it's gonna grow, but it can grow wild.
Yeah.
Right. It can grow wild. We
Right.
know a lot of people, with the seeds that they have within them, yeah, they're wild seeds. They're wild. With no boundaries. No, it's just a weed. Now it's, instead of that seed that might have been a fruit, it's wayward and is wild, but it's not producing anything.
So you're saying that the environment that you're in determines the type of fruit that you bear?
Of course. Yes. It needs a proper environment. That's going back to being planted in good soil, righteous soil. Now all soil is, just because it's dirt doesn't mean it's nurtured properly.
Yeah, all pesticide, all pest free.
Exactly.
So you got something nibbling at your roots all day.
Right. Whereas if that seed is planted in this proper soil, you don't have to worry about the even though it may be weak, it may not seem like it's gonna make it. Going back to pressing on, some of us, if we look at our life, and I look at this is answering that question about the seed. Some of us have, as we are been planted and pressing on, some of us and being broken, whenever you lose a leaf or a couple of leaves, some of us probably wouldn't imagine we would have made it because of the elements. Rodents.
Yeah.
We're talking about Moses.
Right.
Anything can dwarf. I mean, a seed sprouts and it leaves, and then a rodent comes and eats it up. Now, where's the seed? Now it may have to wait another season.
Talking about seasons, you could have a storm.
Yeah, that rolls everything out, destroys everything.
Right. So there's various things that can sort of challenge you, but getting through that challenge is what makes you stronger as well. Like they have certain tents that you can use for growing plants indoors. Like you could grow fruits and vegetables indoors, and you could attach certain fans. Like the fan is there to simulate the wind, and you could even use like a net to like put pressure on the plant, so the plant has to grow up against the net, and it's actually making the stem of the plant much stronger. Because you're providing some resistance. It's still pressing on, but you're not putting so much resistance there that it's going to damage the plant. So it's not going to force you to grow like you trying to, you're growing out of shape. You're still growing in shape, but you got this slight level of resistance there that you have to press on through. There's even the certain teaching methodologies. Like there's one called I+1, right? So I+1 is you have what the person knows now, right? So if you think of a couple of circles, this is what the person knows. This is what you want them to know. But in between that, there's a gap. So like they may not be able to stretch far enough to reach it. Like if you consider learning your first language, you can't just say, teach me Spanish.
Right.
You have to say, how do I say this? Or how do I say that? Because you have like different rings. You have what you know, you have the language of the level of someone who's intermediate, someone who's advanced, someone who's a native speaker, someone who studies Spanish, who's an actual native Spanish speaker, and then you have Spanish. Nobody knows all of Spanish. You know what I mean? And
right.
Even with the talents that we may have, I'm an artist, but I don't know all of art. I don't know every artist that ever was. I don't know every style that there ever was. I could barely name you 10 paintings that are famous. I just know I got talents, like I got these, and I can make stuff. That's all I know. The
right.
rest of the stuff comes later. But
Right.
sometimes we think we're supposed to have everything before we start.
Right.
You know, we have to press on through even that level of insecurity, which
Right.
is actually the next question. That's the last question I got. We close up.
Well, before you venture to the next question, and you just had me rethink. At home, I have an oak nut, a seed.
Okay.
I always utilize, and I remember every time I go camping or so, and I see oak nuts, I pick them up, and I always look at it because I do a skit. I did this with my son one time. I said, you know what? I'm going to do something for you. You see this big tree here? Can you imagine carrying this big tree? And this is going to tie into what seeds are you carrying within you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told him, I said, you want to see some magic?
Mm-hmm.
You see that big tree, right? Can you imagine carrying that tree in the palm of your hand without stumbling,
Mm-hmm.
without falling? Now, I don't know how heavy it is, but it's heavy. And so he's like, Dad, but no, we're not going to chop it down. No, I'm just like, look at it. Look how tall it is. And oak trees are very, very heavy because there's one thing I know about oak trees, maple trees, oak trees the wood is really hard. So my point is, I said, and we're going to do it right here. We're going to do it right here. So now he's trying to picture in his head, how am I going to be able to carry at his weight, carry this big tree without stumbling, without falling? He's trying to figure it out because he's like, I'm seeing the tree, and I'm like, so what do? I reach down and I pick up that oak, and I said, open your hands. Now walk right over here. Mm-hmm. And he's like, Dad, I said, I told you can do it. But why did I do that? He was focusing on that big tree.
Mm-hmm.
How's it possibly going to be made? How am I possibly going to walk without stumbling? But the thing was, I'm not focusing on that tree. I'm focusing on where it started from.
Right.
It started from that oak nut. So it just came to my subconsciousness some years ago. Mm-hmm. So I always use that little story with youth, is to show them that anything you do in life is going back to your question you asked about the seed. Even though it may seem impossible, the seed starts with your thinking. If I plant within my mind that's impossible, you're absolutely right. It's impossible. Because why? You've already told yourself you can't do it. So I utilize the question you ask is, what seed are you carrying within you? If that seed, now of course, as I said, watermelon earlier, but I like oak trees and walnuts. But the point is, not walnuts. I really don't. I mean, I eat them, but I really don't eat them nuts. But my point is, it's about the seed itself. Look what that seed, that oak nut is going to become. Even though it's small and tender, it's small. But look at it as I know that if it falls into the earth, it's going to germinate into that big, massive tree in the forest or where we're at. That's the creation of the Most High. So I just utilize that. But go ahead.
You just reminded me of Matthew. I was looking for it. Matthew chapter 13, verse 31. And he said, it says, another parable put he forth unto them. Kingdom of heaven is like a grain of a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest among herbs, and becometh a tree, so that the birds of the air can come and lodge in the branches thereof. That's like almost 1-to-1 with your analogy that you gave your son.
Mm-hmm. But that came from the mustard seed.
Mm-hmm.
It just came out of that, and going back to pressing on. Can you imagine that seed as it continually grows for generations, for years, and the pressing on, the winds, the water, and remember, it's a seedling. So you were mentioning about sometimes seedlings move. The wind's blowing and it's going to blow, but then for it to to rise high up, and again, and then when you cut a tree down, it has rings. Those rings signify the years that it took to endure. So then it goes back to pressing on. Can you endure the pressure? Can you endure? But you started out as what? A mustard seed. As the scripture said in Matthew stated. Most of us can't endure because why? We don't have the right, if you're not developed in the right texture, or some seeds don't make it. Because why? The squirrels eat them. The rodents eat them. They don't develop into a tree. Only certain ones that develop. And so going back to what you said about Matthew.
Yeah, man. And we got some answers to that question as well before we move on. Aki Rahim says, I think I carry the seed of being a producer. Everything I do is around producing in some shape or form. The shadow side of that would be laziness that I possess. Yeah, man. You know what you need to do, right? Actually, I'd recommend going back to that segment on fidelity. Chief had touched on that lackadaisical nature that a person might have, as opposed to moving fully, right? Or moving as a person with integrity instead of being split. Because if you do what you're doing because you want to get something from it, then you're going to kind of split your mind. Part of you is going to be focused on that, and the other part is going to be focused on opportunities. Abu Yadaram says, seeds of being both fruitful for comradeship and knowledge. Right. Even your name, Yada, to know. Anu Radio says, that's a good question. Based on where it came from, I would say the seed of truth and harmony. I definitely don't always act within with the wisdom of that, though. That brings us to the next question. Last question. We can close up. What insecurities have you allowed to hinder you? So I can go right to Anu Radio's comment. What insecurities have you allowed to hinder you? What are you not pressing on through? Because we know which path we need to take. But the thing between us and that destination is the resistance that we have in our life. Whether it's something there to make us stronger, or it's something there that we try to use to hinder us from traveling on the path we need to travel on. And this is something you can answer in the chat, or you can answer in the comment section for those of you who are coming in later. Because everyone doesn't catch it on the night.
Right.
Yeah, man. But I'll leave that one there. You want to take a crack at it, Herut?
Wow. I got what insecurities have you allowed to hinder you? Here's one that comes to mind. Being too nice. Being too nice, I would say, for mine. But what do I mean by being too nice? When you have a good heart, and I know that there are times I have allowed others to just, and I would being too nice. What do I mean by that? I always, when a lot of times when I see people, I see who they are. I see the end game, but there's a journey from where they're at to where the end game is. And I think that the part of me, when I witness people, there are times that they don't accomplish it. What I know that they, again, going by pressing on, I notice that sometimes they don't accomplish it. So sometimes what I realize is that, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be as nice, meaning they need to go through, they need to endure their hardships. Because why? Being too nice, sometimes you can miss the boat, I want to say Mr. Doc. Miss the dang it, it's at the tip of my tongue. There are those who I have helped out, and I realized that the mistake I made was I pressed on for them more than they pressed on for themselves. I think that's the best way to put it.
Okay.
And that was my mistake. Okay.
Right.
Because you always see the good in, and not everyone. I don't do it in everyone, but there are times. And of course, once I step back, then they get it. And like, too late now.
Right.
It's too late now, because you want people to succeed.
Right.
And I think about Chief. I think about when Chief mentioned sometimes where those that when I remember a time when he said when you pour into someone and it's like, you don't get to return back, and it's like, okay, but it's not until the hardships come in then now you start getting return. And I understand what Chief was mentioning, that maybe what I should not have. I always see the purpose more than what they see.
Yeah.
And that helps me to step back.
Yeah. Chief had mentioned too. Sometimes you step in, and you may not realizing that you're trying to shield someone from the karma of their actions.
Mm-hmm.
They've been living foul, and you see them, and you can see the good in them, but they still have something coming to them based on what they've accumulated over their lives, based on their actions.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right there trying to save them from their karma, and you wind up bearing some of the brunt of that. You take some of that licks for them. Right.
Because it looks like like, oh my God, people can't handle it. Yeah, maybe Abba can handle it. So what? But Abba, you're on your own journey.
Right.
You're on your journey. You can't handle it. You can't take on the journey of others.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna have to endure, like you said, going back to that seed being planted. Okay, like, oh no, they ain't gonna. Oh no, let me go and help them. No. And what is helping me with this is I allow others to fall, and it's to the point now where when I see people going to fall, even when it means that they're going to not make it, let's just say they're not going to make it, I'm okay with that. Why? Because one, and you know what helps me with it? They're not in our culture. They're not in our culture. So if you're not willing to embrace change, if you're not willing to embrace being in fertile soil, you're not willing to embrace the lessons. You're not willing to embrace, like we were talking about, we're in a community and we hold each other accountable. And then you have those outside of us, outside of our new, that I realized that, okay, you give them the segments. You give them, the Anu way. You give them solutions. And they don't want to budge, no problem.
Right.
And for me, it's like, no, let them die out.
Sometimes you give them these things, and you think that it's all that they may need because it's all that you needed. Like Chief would always say, the wise only need a hint. But for other people, they may not gravitate or latch onto it like you did. I heard about Chief off of a CD, a random CD. I heard, I can't call it random, but it was a CD that I heard while I was in someone's shop, and I woke, and he told me about Chief. I asked him if I could borrow it. He said, yeah, and I listened to it, and I went looking for it. I Googled everything I could Google, from the words and the names and everything. It's like, oh, okay, this is it. I found some doodle logs. That was like a step, and I just went digging. And I remember I brought it to him because we used to have like a gathering in his shop. He had a vegetarian, he still has it. He has a vegetarian restaurant.
Okay.
And we used to have like a gathering. We would talk about not Kabbalah, like how we learned it from Chief. We were talking about the Menyelek. That's what we were studying. And Menyelek, and we were studying some Orisha stuff too. And it started out with a bunch of people, but the more study we did, the more the numbers dwindled until it was like at a certain point it was just me and him showing up because everybody was busy. So I was like, well, everybody could join in terms of I knew like spiritual training. He's like, listen, there's certain things you get showed for a reason, and it's not for everybody. You know, you see how many people showed up last night? It's like, yeah. It's like, exactly. That's what you show it to. And I was like, well, I already do that because it's only me and you. It's like, exactly. So just go on with it. Right? And he was right, because I did talk about it to everyone, and they just showed interest in it, but it didn't go beyond that.
Right.
You know? So that showed me too, like, it's certain people only need a little bit. Other people, they need a little bit more of a nudging.
Right.
You know, some people need like a kick in the small of their back.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Get over there.
Right. Right.
Yeah, man. It's a different thing. And like you were talking about breaking the shell, you have to break the hard coating of the fruit, right? Of the seed in order for it to actually start sprouting forth. That needs like a tremendous amount of internal pressure. You know, in order for that to burst forth out of it. It's no different than I remember looking up, funny, I saw one of them earlier this strong. You know, they call them katydids. You know, they can be like leaf buds, or they can like they can camouflage themselves to look like leaves.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know. It's at the tip of my tongue. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So the katydids have a lot of different species to them. They have a lot of shapes and sizes. But I was looking up, like, how does molting work? You know, because you would walk around, you would see like, let's say a beetle shed its skin, and you see its whole skin. But it's like, you didn't like break out of it, because it's still shaped like a beetle. You know what I mean? Or it's still shaped like that bug. But what they do is they grow beyond the size of the skin, but they vibrate to a very high frequency, and they just vibrate themselves out of their old skin.
Wow.
I thought it was super fascinating. You know, talk about pressing on, right? You're getting out of that old mold that you were moving in, and you're moving into a new mold now, right? Or you have to at least you gotta let it harden a little bit, because you tender. You just come out of your old hard shell. Now you tender. Any little thing someone says to you, you're super sensitive to it now. Right? Similar to the experience that you went through with the initiation, and you wearing all white, not being able to, like, you're super sensitive after you come out of that.
Oh, yeah.
Closed off. Like, even with me, like last night, I was dealing with the wine, and I tasted some of it to test it. Remember how sleepy I was on the phone? I only had like this much.
Right.
Because I don't drink anymore.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
I would be the same way. I don't drink. Right. And I would feel the same way.
So even with going back to the maintenance and going back to the fast that you do, and the need for you to clear out some of the sludge that's within you, and you realize a little goes a long way. Like, even with the idea of a mustard seed, a little goes a long way, as long as you're not hard and crusty, and your ego is not keeping your ears blocked or full of wax or sludge, to where you can be like, okay, I can listen to counsel, and if they tell me this is the direction you need to go in, I can go in that direction, and if I meet any resistance, I can press on. You know, because I've already walked it. I've walked this path based on what I was told I needed to do by my elders, and I have faith in them because I have faith in the Yah that they serve and their connection to Him. You know what I mean? So I'm walking, and I'm walking, and I'm walking. It sounds like Christopher Walken just now. I'm walking down the street. I'm walking, and I'm following those directives. When I meet resistance, I'm not gonna just drop everything like another. You know, and he went through 3 times, and he's like, hold on now, something. And he didn't stop to say, I quit, I'm going home. All of y'all full of it. You know, because y'all keep telling me 2 miles. You know, he was like, listen, I know you for 40 years. You wouldn't just walk these 2 miles without knowing what's going on. And I see you smiling with everybody, so it's like this inside joke. Like, put me on.
Put me on the joke, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I know you know. I know this isn't a waste of time, but you gotta. Hey, I'm slow. Help me out. I'm slow. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, just go for the ride. You know, just 2 miles. Just keep going. You'll make it. Keep going. You'll make it. If I gotta give you an arbitrary number to tell you, okay, it's 2 more miles. Just 2 more miles. You know, but that encouragement helps you and move in that direction from elders, right? And from people who know the way. These people who live in the area of the village, they should know how far the village is.
And it's funny, as you were mentioning the question, what insecurities have you allowed yourself to hinder? I remember one of them, and I learned to overcome it early on in my leadership, was learning to, there was a part of me that was afraid to let people know that I made a mistake. It's easier now. I'm like, you know what? Oh my gosh, it's easy. But it took moments. It took moments for me to like, wow. And I watch other people when they make a mistake and they know they made a mistake, they will not admit it. And I had to learn, but I learned that because of my elders. You know, when they correct you, and it's like, you're like, wow. So now it's easier to accept, because growing and pressing on, you won't press on if you've been doing something for so long and it's been wrong, like you were saying earlier. Okay, say you've been doing something for so long wrong, and then you realize, if anything I learned and I knew, I've been doing it for so long that it's like, I got to move beyond this. But the point is, it was so long, I'm still wondering that. But it helped me to recognize, you know what, I was living wrong. But it wasn't just me, it was society. Again, outside of Anu, if you don't have a righteous culture, if you don't have a culture that, you know, and this is the thing that I learned, and even to this day, as I work with people, then when they're corrected, they don't like being corrected. Or they like, or definitely don't correct them in the public. Oh, hell no, you can't do that. And so one of the things that I did with my subordinates is I always, when I was confronted on what I did wrong, and I'm like, you know what, I screwed up. I screwed up. I was wrong. Or I overreacted on something. I was wrong. Okay. And so that's another thing. As you press on, okay, did you transform from that moment? Going back to what you're saying about that beetle vibrating out, you know, you got me. I'm gonna have to go and look that up. How do a beetle? Not because I thought of when you said a beetle. Okay, what about a spider? I still have the shell of a spider at home. My dad, when his tarantula, my dad's got tarantulas, and it molted.
Yeah, you told me. Yeah, you told us.
And it still looks like a real tarantula in there. I know it's not. It's molted, but I'm wondering, how the heck did it molt? It broke out of his shell. But I brought that to again. I have these things not because it's fascinating, but also it's about us breaking out of our shell of our old way into a new, a new being, a new creation. Just like the seed has to crack open, like you said about pressure. It has to crack open in order to sprout. It never just sprouts from itself. It has to crack open. What is the pressure that is going to endure to break it open? So sometimes being cracked from your insecurity, most of us don't like being cracked open.
Not from the inside.
Definitely. And exactly. You were talking about being cracked open from the inside.
You figure you can hide it, right? It goes back to, like, that's one of my biggest insecurities, like admitting fault in public. Right? Especially since I'm always teasing people for their mistakes. So that makes it even worse. So just saying, wow, I messed that up. You know, I should not have done that. But it softens your ego,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes you more amenable to listening, to receiving those messages from the Most High. Because if you don't take accountability for wherever you're fallible, wherever you make mistakes, how can you properly listen? Your ears are full of sludge, because you hired some subcontractors and they live in your ears, and they block whatever sound is coming to you, but they tell you what you want to hear.
Right. Right.
You're little tiny subcontractors.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
So y'all go into chat. When you ask that question, let's see. On the radio mentions learning on self. Wait a minute.
Oh, leaning.
Oh, okay, leaning. Okay, it's so small. Leaning
You
on
look
self.
on the screen. I put it on the screen. If that's logical.
Okay, leaning on self idolatry rather than trusting what Yah has promised, not knowing every step of the plan isn't always for me to know. That was that's on the radio. Akoti Yafet mentions answer one. Oh, she reread it. The seed of insecurity. It crowds amid fight. Wait, dang it. It crowds amid
It's on the screen.
Okay. It crowds, let's see. It crowds amid fights with the original perfect seed that I came here with, and insecurity doesn't produce at all. Okay. Yeah. Yaffe also mentions answer number 2, being perceived as unintelligent when it means it's dang it.
It's on the screen.
It's on the screen now?
Yeah, don't I got you. I'm walking with you.
Okay, answer 2. Being perceived as unintelligent when it rears its head, I go silent as inward. Is that what it's...
Yeah,
and okay, inward, okay.
Yes, you go silent and inward. But Sister Yaffe, with the first one, you said, I asked what seed you're carrying within you, and you said the seed of insecurity, and it fights with the original perfect seed. So what's that original perfect seed that you're supposed to produce from?
Right.
You know, you talked about what crowds it, but what's the actual main thing? You know, even the fact that you mentioned that over the original seed might speak to how big it is to you.
And while we're waiting for her, Emaniah, insecurities of not wanting to be seen, thinking what I have to say doesn't matter. And Emma Aquia, my insecurities are of failure and rejection. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think, as she mentioned, insecure, but that's just it. Even though we may have, I'm trying to think of moments when I was insecure of something. Well, but that's just it. We got to it's like breaking out of our skin, breaking out of, and you know what I learned with anything we face is embrace it. And then you can transform it. Okay. And so that's when I'm faced with something, anything, a challenge, I embrace it. That's one of the things I learned in martial arts. We had to embrace whatever our fears were. Remember, we mentioned it some time ago about fear. And so this is one of them, our insecurities. Why? In the culture, in the bastardized culture, no one wants to be man up to their faults, man up to their mistakes. That's why it always threw me off about people call themselves Christians and they profess in a person called Christ, but then they start doing the very dumb things that Christ said not do. And I'm like, why are you doing that? But again, being hypocritical. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then Aquia mentions, yes, it is hard to admit when I am wrong due to the insecurity of looking bad or others thinking I'm incompetent. But even further, admitting when I'm wrong, then sincerely apologizing. Yeah, that's the thing. We being wrong is because of what we've been going back to bad seeds. If we plant if the bad seeds were planted, then we have to transform that. Maybe as we're waiting for the question. So because some of us have planted bad seeds. I know I was one of them. So when you plant that bad seed, so now guess what? You got a bad seed and it's taking up root. Going back to the question about, so now that seed, so now what do you do with, now you got to plant another seed that's going to outshoot the bad seed you plant, and that's not easy. And that's why people, when you get older, it's hard for them to break habits, because why? You planted that seed of whatever the issues are we face, especially like we're saying, we don't want to be wrong, but that's just it. If we never grow and move beyond that, we won't see it. So as she was sharing in the chat about not being wrong, yeah, you know, I you know what? It's funny, and I pick on myself when Aki Zach put out about, he mentioned about the COVID. He said, "How do you know I didn't have COVID?" I had to admit, I'm like, damn, because I'm so used to doing patients, but he had a question that I had to answer, and we were going back and forth, but I lost, and it's okay, because I was not only, I don't even look at it about I lost, I was wrong. Why? Right. I could not, when he brought that out, I can't say for him that he didn't have it, and he's right, or for not just for him or that matter anyone else, unless I did certain tests, then I can say that. But the point is, I was generalizing. But going back to, that's perfect while we were saying things. Knowing, once you are convicted that I was incorrect, it's okay going back and admitting that I was in error. And so, but it's going back to practicing. That's why I said sometimes we have to break those bad habits and those bad seeds. We have to now replace it with good seeds.
Right. And sometimes it goes to just questioning the validity of some of these thoughts, right? And sometimes you can use what's known as the symmetry of logic. So, for example, with Sister Yafe saying her insecurity was being perceived as unintelligent. You know, when it rears its head, she goes silent and inward. So if you're unintelligent, if you think that being unintelligent means that you need to be quiet, does that mean that other people you see outside you, when they're down, you're thinking, why don't you just shut up? You know, is that what you think about them? Because you do that to yourself. You know, I should shut up now. You know, do you tell other people to shut up when they're being unintelligent? You know, right. Even with not wanting to be seen or thinking that what you have to say doesn't matter, does that insecurity come from actually talking out of place? You know, you might have said something that you weren't supposed to speak out of place with. Maybe your punishment was disproportionate. It might not have even been enough. You know, or maybe it was proportionate and you didn't take it well. So it's like, all right, I'm just not gonna say nothing. You know, don't ask me nothing, I'm not gonna say nothing. You know, all of these things yield their own questions. And you can question the validity of all of these thoughts. You know, why is my insecurity of fear of failure and rejection? And I'm right there with you, Imo Queer, because those were mine too for a long time. and they're still there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're always going to be there for you to fight with. You know, and okay, so you said it's hard to admit when you're being wrong, due to the insecurity of looking bad or others thinking you're incompetent. I got the same thing, but even further, admitting when I'm wrong, then sincerely apologizing. You know, but does being wrong mean you're incompetent? You might have just made a mistake, you know, but you made a mistake. Doesn't mean like you are a mistake.
Correct.
You know, I like that was a dumb decision. Not I'm dumb.
Correct.
You know, or identifying with that. It's like, all right, that wasn't a wise choice. Let me step back and make a better choice. You know, even when I dropped the thing, I just I just let one out. You know, big F-ball. That was it. It's like, all right, I'm gone. I'm cool. I was like Hades from Hercules.
And,
you know,
and
just my...
as you look in the chat and you share, and it's one of the things that I appreciate the moment for me is I always put myself in the position where I am not, and I share this with people, I'm not the smartest one in the room sometimes. I'm okay with that. That doesn't mean that's not saying I'm unintelligent. Doesn't say I'm dumb. I like being around people who are more intelligent than me. Now, I have worked with people who don't like that. I said, damn it, then fine. That's what you don't like. But the point is, if I don't know something, I don't know it. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay if you don't know. Or better yet, say if you thought you knew, like we were saying, you might have thought you knew and you knew it and you did it wrong for the long time, but then you find out it's not right. And say you did it for 10, 20 years. Okay, now I'm grateful that I've been corrected.
Right.
From doing the wrong, which I thought was right.
Right. You know, or I could just kill you and I'll still be right.
Right.
You know? I could just move like the government. If only one person is saying I'm wrong, then I could just kill them before that turns into 2 people or 10 people or 20 people or 100 people. I could just kill that one person and be done with it. You know, isolate them, make them look crazy, and get rid of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because certain scandals people don't talk about anymore.
No.
You know,
it's funny. It's now the world is so used to being scandalized, corrupted. It's funny. Now they can put a lie out there and everybody just goes along with it. And it's like, now the lie today is the new truth. It's the bad seeds, going back to seeds. Bad seeds are planted and people know they're bad seeds. Everybody knows, but no one's willing to correct it. No one's willing to transform it. No one's willing. They know that seed is going to kill off the other seeds. It's funny. We live in a population, we live in a community now that they know that what they're doing is wrong, is incorrect, but we tolerate it now.
Right. They have those GMO seeds up. You know, I remember one of the main talking points they had with those GMO seeds is feeding the homeless. But at the same time, because they're like, yeah, we'll have a lot more food. You know, we got all these homeless people. We can feed the homeless people. Yeah, but when people was building tiny houses for homeless people in California, y'all ordered them to break them up and put the homeless people back on the street in tents. Like, that solved the problem.
Right.
You know? So it's like, again, the symmetry of logic, right? Or does your logic sustain? You know, with all of these different crises that you were telling me about, I don't hear about them no more. You know, is Ebola not a thing anymore, or is it just not important anymore?
Wait,
there's a certain point where Ebola was everywhere. Like you couldn't go and turn on your TV without hearing about Ebola.
Right.
Ebola outbreak in West Africa. Yeah, don't accept goods from West Africa because Ebola. Like, is Ebola no longer an issue? Is it no longer a disease, or are we just concerned about something else now? Until the next thing comes along.
Right.
All right, man. What should I do about Ebola? Like right now, how do I not catch it? Where is it? Is it still in West Africa? Should I just not go there? Where's Ebola at? Should I maybe Google Maps? I can go on Google Maps and just type in Ebola and find out where it is. You know, but it's these types of things where it's like, look over there. No, look over there. Look over there. It's like, nah, where does Yah say I should be looking? Where does my creator say I should be looking? I'll go in that direction. Whatever resistance I encounter, I'll keep pressing on because he told me go in this direction. Don't worry about what's ahead of you. Don't worry about who opposes you. Move in this direction. Move how I tell you to move. Move when I tell you to move. And if I tell you to switch up the direction, don't argue with me. Just switch the direction.
Right.
You know, but some people do get it. This is the movie. This is the last point I'm gonna make. We're gonna get off. It's the movie and The Incredibles. I don't know you familiar with that one.
Yes.
It's
Love The Incredibles.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember the point where the whole movie they were telling their children not to use their powers?
Yeah.
They should never use their powers.
Right.
Right. And it gets up to the point where they're on the plane. And the missiles are coming. Like the mother realized, like there's missiles headed for the plane, and just all of a sudden, Violet, I need you to make a giant force field that's going to cover the whole plane. You know what I mean? And she froze. She didn't know what to do. She was shocked. You keep telling me not to use my powers. Now you want me to use it in a high level way.
Right.
You know what I mean? So she was shocked. But sometimes you gotta be able to move in that flexible motion. Right. And she was trying to force her way of thinking, because you have to think a certain way to use your powers in a certain way. You know, there's certain things that they would learn about themselves through the whole movie, but it's just like, I didn't know I could do that. You know, like with Dash, the little boy who had super speed, when he was running on water, and he looked down, he thought he was gonna sink. He looked down and was like, I'm running on water. You know? Even with the girl, when she jumped in front of her brother when they started shooting, and she put up a force field. And he's like, how are you doing that? She's like, I don't know. He's like, whatever you do, don't stop.
Right.
You know,
right.
They were just learning the stuff. It's what they had in them. But it was just the environment, like you were saying earlier with the watermelon seed or the orange seed, is what kind of nutrients you give them, what kind of environment you put them in. And it will determine if you grow stunted or if you grow to your full potential. Yeah, man. But you have to be willing to press on through the resistance as long as you've meditated and deliberated on where it is you need to go, you know, and you can get that from tapping into your elders, from tapping into your L.
Right. What L do you serve? As Chief would say, what L do you serve?
Right.
Everybody doesn't serve the same L.
But you got to do it. That's the next thing too. Like you get all this information, you got to do it now. Right. I'll read these last comments and we can head out.
Okay.
Y'all been riding with us. Y'all been some troopers. So Sovereign East. Oh yeah, Yafe, Sister Yafe answered the question. She said, is there more? Oh, there is more.
Yeah, there's a few more.
There's a lot more. Hold on.
No, there's a few more.
Okay, sorry about the typo. Don't worry about it. Sovereignty says, peace, brothers, part of my delayed response. I hold the seed of divine and perfect femininity and womanhood. Imakuya says, I'm thinking the harvest of the bad seed needs to be sifted and burned to include the bad seed so that the good and purpose seed can flourish. Right. You got to be able to tell them apart. Sister Yafe says, sometimes I do. Talking about telling people to shut up. Sometimes I do. I think, I would think, just be quiet or just have a seat.
Right.
So you tell yourself the same thing. Just be quiet. You know, you go inward and then you might black out for a second. You come back and it's like, huh? Like how we delayed in the chat, you might be delayed in the conversation. You know, because like I used to do that a lot. I used to be so stuck in my feelings. Like, I can't believe I made a mistake. What is wrong with me? You slipping today. You really slipping. I'd be talking to myself like, that was dumb. Why would you do that? And then you hear your name and the inflection. It's like, Antonio, huh? So that was a question. Huh? What? It's like,
right.
You didn't hear it. Sometimes he's being the stratosphere. Sometimes I'm up there. But yeah, man. Sovereignty says, yes, insecurities of being uncertain, fear of being a burden to others, fear of my ideas being considered dumb, causing me to go into wallpaper mode. Wow.
I like the wallpaper mode.
Mm-hmm. But again, do you inflict those same thoughts onto others when they commit those certain mistakes? See, Alfie says, sometimes I just look on in awe if it's some sort of activity, and other times I do realize it's not them, it's me. Okay. Talking about others now. See, Alfie said, the perfect seed is supposed to bring laughter and be silly, be light in all things, have fun, make people feel at ease, help them to find what they are looking for, all which can be aspects of beauty. Okay, I'll take it. It's more there, but we're gonna wrap it up.
We'll wrap it up.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, mine. I definitely resonate with a lot of them that you all have said. And by asking myself that question, like, do I inflict that sort of do I try to inflict that same sort of trauma onto others as I do on myself? I do, mentally. I'd be like, when I think I did something dumb, I call myself dumb. When I think someone else did something dumb, it's like, I wasn't smart. And I want to tell them that wasn't smart. But if they know it wasn't smart and they're already beating themselves up, I'll try to make light of it.
Right.
But like, if you're already guilty, like, oh man, I messed that up. It's like, yeah, you did. Like, I try to make them laugh after that.
Right.
But if they did something dumb and they didn't realize it was dumb, it's like, you see what just happened just now? It's like, what? It's like, oh, this could be good. Rubbing my eyes together. So there is an internal bully with me, and that can stop me from moving forward. I'd say
that was like me too. That was me too. I used to be really, really hard on myself. I'm not as bad as anymore, but I'm like, I used to be, going back to what I was saying about being wanting for more for someone else. But then for me, it's like, I've always been hard. And so I had to learn to just, I had to learn to just be patient and not be, or as they say, take it too serious. I would, there were times I would take things too serious, and that's an insecurity because, it's about that balance. Okay. And, and so now, like I was sharing with earlier, when I was on the plane on the way here, and it's like, I had my studies and everything, but I had to basically go through that moment of humble, like my body's like, no, you're going to sleep. Even though I had my pad right there. And so now I don't beat myself up. It's like, okay, I get it. I had to sleep. And I'm like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get through it. So now going back to what we were saying earlier, pressing on is like, I'm going to get through it. But I'm now understanding that, and I still go through challenges. I still got dozens of things I got to get done, but it's like it's these moments like Sabbath. It's these moments where it's like, okay, take a breather. Sometimes you work so much and you forget you're breathing. Have you ever done that? We're like, okay, am I breathing?
I was doing it just now.
Right.
Just holding my breath.
Right. Am I thinking too much, or did I breathe right now? Did I breathe today?
Right.
Am I breathing okay? Yeah, because we can do too much. So it's like, take a breather. And that's why in the dawning, I spend that time in silence. And I do practice some moments where I don't do nothing. Because I'm still struggling. I struggle with that still.
Yeah, doing nothing.
That's doing literally for, let's say it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes. I still struggled with that. But sometimes that teaches me, like, okay, stop. Enjoy that moment. If it's 5 minutes, 15 minutes, I'm still learning to incorporate that. But that's part of my dawning now.
Yeah, I still like sitting alone in the dark room. Like I think I want to invest in a sensory deprivation tank if I could. At least try one. I always wanted to try one of those.
What is it again?
Sensory deprivation tank.
What is that? What is that?
It basically it shuts off all input into your senses. There's no sound in the room. There's no vision.
Okay.
You know, there's nothing to smell, taste, or touch. I don't know how they do the touch thing because I don't know how to levitate.
So is it a place you go or so, or?
It can be constructed. It's a room that's constructed in a certain way that it allows no sound in, doesn't allow light in. You know, you're not gonna smell anything, and you're not eating, so you're not tasting anything. I just don't know how to do the touch. But sensory, like they can just deprive one of your senses, or it could be more than one as well. Like they can just deprive one for just sound. Like there's no sound in this room.
Well, I've experienced certain things like that. I just never knew what the name was.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to try one of those.
And I love it. Like you said, there's some places I can go where it's actually like that, and I love it. I love it. I remember when I was younger, I remember going to retreats where it's in silence. Where the retreat master, you can ask a question, but you had to write it down. No cell phones. No, that's something that I want to incorporate in like a retreat where no talking.
Like a
where spot. It's strictly nature. You can eat. Can you imagine you all eating and you're not talking? You just, and then when you have the retreat master is giving, like, say if it's chief doing his lessons or so, and you have a question. Now you got to write it out. You can't ask. You just got to write it out. And I love those. The Ignatian, the Jesuits, they had, it's called the Ignatian retreats. I used to love those. It was like for a week, I think, and I loved them. But see, I've experienced things like that. I loved it. But I said, I'm going to incorporate something since it was more that way. But I said, let me incorporate something where, like a retreat, something like that, where it would be, can you imagine being in a retreat where it's in silence?
That would be interesting.
The ambience of nature.
Yeah, that would be super interesting. I'm interested.
Yeah. That's something I'm working on. It's just having a location, and those of us go and like, don't worry about the home. They'll call the emergency number and but you can't talk during the entire time you're there. No cell phones, because that time no cell phones, no gadgets, no, just strictly nature.
Right. Yeah, man.
I got it. I got you. That'll be something we can put it. Maybe we'll put that in Anu one day. Can you imagine we do our Anu retreat and it's in silence? Chief chimed in on something.
Chief said, peace, great subject, and the question presented was obviously thought-provoking. Give thanks for this. Give thanks for.
Give thanks, Chief.
Definitely. And because a lot of this was pulled from the gems that you had dropped on us during the true fidelity segment. We went back and looked at some of the older segments, and that one really helped out a lot. with you and Zach chiming in, you know, it helps with the bill too when others chime in, and I think a part of that insecurity was is what stops us from chiming in too, because the typical response is, "I didn't think I had anything to say. I didn't think I had anything to add." Like, you always got something to add.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're you. You know, you're not me. You're not Abba Herut. So even if you say what I'm saying, you can't say it the same way. You know what I mean? I don't know nobody who can say it the way Abba Herut would. So you covered it up, because it's unique energies, right? And as long as everyone has their note, they can chime in on a particular topic, and not feel the insecurity of, well, my seed isn't as good as their seed, or I can't add on to what's already been said, you know. But allow it to soak in, and something will always come to you.
Mm-hmm. But it goes back to what you're sharing about the silence and the seeds being in its cultivated in its proper element. When you do so, and it just let Yah come out. Like, even for us preparing this, we have our notes, but we rely on that ill that fills us in communicate and relating to our audience, to relate to and building from what Chief has done so many different topics. I mean, so many. But then you build from that. And then you keep building. And we are seeds. We are our new seeds, each and every one of us in this space. And look how we're being cultivated, each and every one of us. Look at how each and every one of us is sprouting. As some of us know that when we first started, look what Chief is the gardener, and he had to sprout. We can talk about like El Karar. I don't know why I think of El Karar when we first started. El Karar had his hat, and I remember it was like Chief's like that damn door and the hat. But look at El Karar. Now, look. I mean, but how did that come about?
He's slowly transforming into a professor.
Yeah.
Before first he lost the hat, and then he shut the closet, and now he's wearing his glasses again more often. Like, you'll see him in a blazer soon. You know. So I'm waiting for that.
But the thing is, look at that cultivation. Each and every one of us has a unique gift to offer. And then by being cultivated in the right environment, could we really say that if we didn't have Anu, which we know the answer, if we weren't in Anu, we wouldn't be able to, we know we wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now. Because why? We wouldn't have the right soil, the right elements. A teacher, a master, chief, in order for him to have cultivated us, he had to go through rites of passage. His seed had to be planted in certain soils and cultivated and germinated for him. And then for him to pour into each and every one of us. One of the things that you mentioned earlier about the insecurity, I'll never forget when Chief was mentioning and going to the truth session. Chief poured into each and every one of us. He's even poured into others that they did not, they were just receiving, but yet they weren't giving back. Mm-hmm. Did you know from my truth session when he mentioned just me alone, that broke, that was one of the part of my shell that broke. Mm-hmm. That I had like, you're right. Chief is pouring into each and every one of us. He gives his heart. And guess what? Does he get the return back? Not think about some of those that are not in our new. That he's poured more into them than he did some of us. And guess what? Yeah, they got the our new way, so what? But it's like, to them, it's like, so what? Chief, just give me some more. Let me just keep hearing that music. And it's like, so now, he's pressing on, but guess what? And that's why I was listening to one of his segments. I remember Chief was mentioning when he was mentioning about the I was listening to him when he was doing the men and the womb of Anu. And in that segment he was breaking down, it's like he was changing the Chief speaks. He was talking about Chief, and he had to make some changes. And what he did in that time, and this is what we can close out from this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Chief said, "I'm going to invest now inside Anu, because you guys got all the stuff out there. I invested. I invested my time. I invested my energy. I invested all the seeds are out there. So now he invested." And I remember when he said that was around the time that we were where he was changing direction, pressing on, going back to pressing on.
Mm-hmm.
So he pressed on, and guess what? Pressure. And like you mentioned, his Chief is mentioning in the chat, as he applied the pressure to each and every one of us. And this is where we get Master Menyelek. This is where we get El Karar. This is where we get Aki Zach. And Emma Yakira Eden and Akoti Yafe, Akoti Yamina. The list goes on and Safta Ahava, Safta Gertrude, even Saba Walcott. I give great thanks to him. But again, this is what when you're in a proper environment. So I just want to give thanks as we close out.
Yeah, definitely. I'll read these two final comments from Chief, and then we can close up. So Chief says, cultivating at that level requires inner vision. Sometimes we are stuck in addition or adding on. We are multiplication people. Just be a part of the equation. There may not be a plus sign for you. Just be in the equation. Yah will determine if you are a destroyer or a builder. Okay? Yeah, man, just be in the equation.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And it's similar to what Leonardo was complaining about in that video. When we were talking about the Ninja Turtles. You know, everyone has their role to play. But most of the strife comes from Raphael saying that he's like Kodak Black, let me drive the boat. You know, let me drive.
Wait, say it again?
He said, let me drive the boat. I want to be the captain. You know, but he wasn't the one who was made the leader.
Right.
You know, and everyone has their role determined based on what it is that they bring. But you may not be able to see it from that bird's eye view.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you trust in the one who actually has a higher level of vision than you do.
Right.
Instead of saying, well, we can't beat them. You telling me who just showed you all of this stuff that you could look at these people and tell me more about them than I just told you? You know, just do it. You know,
right.
I just told you what to do. You know, everybody doesn't have that. Some people are just fumbling around trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Just do what I told you to do. All right. So with that, you got anything else you want to add?
No. And just give thanks for everyone for hanging with us.
Yeah, because I don't know, we trying to break some type of record. We trying to break our last record.
I don't even know what the last record was. I don't even know what the last time was. I don't keep up with it. So I'll be honest with you. I don't know.
Last record was trying to break 5 hours. So we on 3.5. But I appreciate the build. You know, I always enjoy chopping it up with you and building with you and everyone
Same
who came with face, everyone who was responsive in the chat. You know, Chief coming through. Just appreciate all of you. You know, and willing you a restful Shabbat.
Yes, give thanks, and then we have the womb as a reminder. We have the womb speaking tomorrow at the end of Sabbath.
Right. Tomorrow at 8 p.m.
8 p.m. Yes. Yeah, and then of course, and then midday.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. While you're doing that,
they were building on what determines
what is what is I got you. I'm backing you up.
Okay,
what is dictating your lifestyle? What's dictating your lifestyle? That's the
All
womb that is speak. So we're gonna definitely support them on that channel, and we're just pressing on as always. We're pressing on and building, and give praise to the Most High as we build.
Right.
As we build.
Oh, before we leave, I am gonna put this up on the screen for a quick second.
And our new retreat.
It is actually here. We have our new retreat coming up in June. So I'm just gonna show that. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave this QR code on the screen for a couple of seconds. But you can always pause it. Right? Pause it, scan the QR code. It's gonna take you right to the application form. And you can always find more information on ournewlifeglobal.org. Okay? So with that, I think we can close out. Of course, we have tomorrow we have the Shabbat cipher and everything that we have internally, and then we also have our first day build, our midday affirmative. Right? Sister Yafa is saying registration is open. Right? So you can come on down, sign up. I look forward to meeting all the people who show up face to face. You know, I don't want to just see a number of such and such views. It would be good to meet you all in person and build with you all. You know, so any questions you may have or anything you want to bring up, you could bring it up. But if there's anything that you want to ask or bring up, put it in the chat. You know, or put it in the comment section. And,
it's gonna be great.
So with that, yeah, I missed the last couple, so I'm looking forward to this one.
I ain't missing them all. It keeps getting better and better. It's like that wine. It's like that wine you make. It keeps getting better and better over with time.
Yeah, that's still aging, by the way.
Yeah. So give thanks. Give thanks.
Yeah, man. Give thanks. Peace, everyone. Enjoy your
peace, everyone.
Rest.
Give thanks.